Chapter 1. The Dragonborn. In a modest rental apartment of less than 80 square meters, Lin Yu spent 2 months' wages to purchase a new computer. His first foray into the realm of gaming was with the Elder Scrolls V, Skyrim, affectionately dubbed Girl Scrolls. Initially perplexed by the title's reference to girls, Lin Yu played for nearly a month, encountering only various medieval women and a vampire lady who was somewhat appealing. Often, Lin Yu would inadvertently bump into a chicken while walking, leading to relentless beatings and pursuers, which incited considerable frustration. Witnessing guards who only lamented their past injuries, he yearned for ruthless vengeance, only to be met with fines and moral lessons that transformed him into a model citizen. His close friend, known as Qingmian Shusheng but originally named Xia Tian, had gained a reputation in various games for his agility and quick reflexes, belonging to the upper echelons of players. It was he who introduced Lin Yu to Skyrim and later enlightened him about modding, an exciting concept that added new elements to the existing game framework. Refuse. A person like me would never engage with experimental mods. Even if I were to leap from this 17th floor apartment, I could never bring myself to install a lab mod, Lin Yu replied earnestly on WeChat. Let's wait and see, with a humorous emoji, Xia Tian responded. 3 hours later. Let me clarify. Initially, I was resistant, but a man's essence is to take risks as long as one maintains control. Stop right there. I've sent you the files. You need to set them up with a mod manager first. I'll teach you how to use it. What the heck? Why is it so complicated? What is this prerequisite file nonsense? Come over and help me install it. Fine, I'll come over after work. Just remember, you're treating for late-night snacks. Consider it arranged. Later that night. All set. Try launching the game. Loading. Black screen. Hey, what's going on? What are your computer specs? Xia Tian asked, puzzled. Low-end configuration at 3,000. I saved up for 2 months to buy it. Lin Yu replied. There's a display, but it looks different than usual. Come see this, Xia Tian. Lin Yu pointed at the screen. That looks familiar. This is a dragon scroll from the Elder Scrolls. Are you sure you downloaded the right files? No, I thought your files were corrupted. So, I downloaded resources from 3DM forums myself, Lin Yu explained. Unbelievable. Lin Yu, you're a marvel. You must have messed something up. Suddenly, the star map on the computer screen erupted with blue light, enveloping the entire room. A force pulled the two of them toward the scroll's magic circle. Blinded by the brilliance, they felt themselves moving. In the darkness, 3 scrolls approached them. The scroll marked with the sun engraved itself into Lin Yu's mind and soul, while the scroll marked with blood imprinted a star map into Xia Tian's essence. The Elder Scrolls are divided into 3 parts. The Dragon Scroll can open a time-space tunnel, theoretically allowing passage to the past without the capacity to alter it. It's akin to a person from the Qin dynasty suddenly vanishing, erased from human memory and reappearing in the future, as they now were. The Blood and Sun Scrolls transformed through an unknown mystical force, possibly granting other abilities. Unconscious for an indeterminate time, they were enveloped in a chilling cold. As a southern dweller of Blue Star, Lin Yu had never encountered snow in his lifetime, save for travel. Now, amidst the biting wind and falling snowflakes, the temperature was bone-chilling. They lay in the snow, a conspicuous scroll measuring a meter in length resting on their backs. Finally regaining some awareness, Lin Yu shook his heavy head and realized he was sitting atop Xia Tian, who was buried in the snow beneath the scroll. Fortunately, a blizzard was absent. Otherwise, their prolonged unconsciousness would have led to a frozen demise. Slap! Slap! Ugh, that rascal hit me hard. As Xia Tian awoke, he touched his sore face, feeling as though he had been struck. Seeing this, Lin Yu turned away, offering an explanation that it was due to some unstable factor, certainly not his doing. Where are we? Xia Tian surveyed their surroundings. Apart from trees and snow, nothing else was visible. Lin Yu unfurled the scroll for Xia Tian to see, causing Xia Tian to become agitated. My goodness, an Elder Scroll dragon. It seems we've traversed into the world of the Elder Scrolls. Xia Tian urged Lin Yu to fully spread out the scroll. Suddenly, a surge of powerful magic erupted from it, shooting skyward. A tempest of magical energy formed above them, and with a resounding blast, the tranquil storm resembled a detonated nuclear bomb, sending a shockwave that triggered an avalanche. Realizing the impending danger, they quickly grabbed the scroll and fled. Fortunately, it was merely a small hillside, and the avalanche was sufficiently distanced. After sprinting several hundred meters, they were out of harm's way. Yet, the sky appeared to be torn open like a black hole, and Lin Yu sensed something continuously emerging from it. He inquired if Xia Tian felt the same, but aside from finding the black hole visually striking, Xia Tian had no other impressions. The sound of galloping hooves approached. A group of 7 riders clad in black cloaks drew near, each wearing a long sword at their waist, their eyes harboring a chilling aura. As a common citizen from Blue Star, Lin Yu could immediately discern that these individuals were formidable, their presence exuding a menacing air. "Who are you? What is that black hole in the sky? Why are you here?" one of them questioned, drawing his sword threateningly at the two. "Xia Tian, I recall that in the snowy regions, aside from bandits, the Dawn Guards should be present. They likely won't harm us, right? Please look closely. Do these individuals resemble the Dawn Guards? Besides, in the Elder Scrolls, the Dawn Guards embody justice and order. Do you honestly believe a faction of righteousness would draw their swords against us without provocation? What are you whispering about? Speak clearly. Who are you? Why are you here? What has transpired?" As their hesitation grew, the 7 riders unsheathed their swords, encircling the two. If they failed to clarify their situation promptly, it was likely that they would become the first casualties of this adventure, their journey cut short before it even began. "My apologies. We are travelers from the north, having journeyed for days and nights. However, we encountered bizarre creatures along the way, leading to the loss of our wagon and supplies. We are the only 2 to escape to this place, and we are equally bewildered by the sudden transformation of the sky. We even faced an avalanche moments ago," Xia Tian explained in one breath, his gaze fixed intently on the leader of the riders, who clearly held authority. Upon hearing this, the other riders exchanged glances. The surrounding evidence did suggest a recent minor avalanche, a common occurrence in such frigid landscapes. Yet, the leader remained skeptical, fully aware of what lurked within these snowy woods. "I am Banyan Stark, Chief Ranger of the Night Watch. Your attire may be peculiar, but you do not resemble wildlings. For the time being, I shall accept your account. First, let's return. Locke and Bran will accompany the 2 of them. We must head back to the Great Wall. That tremendous sound we just heard has caused strange alterations in the surroundings, and the black hole in the sky is highly unsettling. I must report this to the commander." An hour later, before them stood a towering wall constructed of solid ice and colossal stones, reaching heights of over 200 meters. As they gazed upward, it was difficult to discern the summit, leaving both men in sheer astonishment. The top of the Great Wall was broad enough to accommodate 12 individuals standing side by side, while the base was even wider. "Summer, I haven't played the Elder Scrolls for as long as you, but does the game feature such grand edifices? Or have I misremembered? This is not quite what I envisioned. Could it be that the Greybeards and the Master of the Throat reside up there? From my 5 years of experience with Elder Scrolls, there is absolutely nothing like this. Not even a mod can replicate such architecture. What kind of world is this? Wait, I think I recall watching an American series years ago, but I've forgotten most of it. This is the Wall of Despair. My heavens, I now recognize this world," Lin Yu exclaimed in astonishment. "The Wall of Despair? What is that? A structure from a film?" Summer inquired, puzzled. The events began with the discovery of long-extinct creatures at the borders of Westeros, heralding an impending danger. Meanwhile, the Lord of Winterfell and head of House Stark, Eddard Stark, welcomed an old friend and king, Robert Baratheon. The king hoped Eddard would assume the role of Hand of the King to combat the rebels seeking to usurp the Iron Throne. Tensions were palpable, and beneath the seemingly tranquil surface of the kingdom, turbulent waters churned. The powerful Baratheon family, the valiant Stark family, the ambitious Targaryens, and the secretive Lannisters each harbored their own agendas. The unexpected demise of the king plunged the realm into a ceaseless state of conflict. In essence, this is a medieval world infused with swords, magic, and dragons, a realm that rivals the Elder Scrolls in grandeur. Yet, the elements of magic are woefully scarce, and dragons are few. Compared to the Elder Scrolls, this world seems like an infant in a stroller, while the Elder Scrolls, despite fewer warriors, overflows with magical entities, far surpassing this realm in complexity and depth. This world is rife with bloodshed, power struggles, deceit, and unending strife, teeming with conspiracies and assassinations. As the stability of rulers wavers, wars inevitably ensue. As Lin Yu gradually explained, the 2 men followed 7 others through a tunnel beneath the Great Wall, eventually being escorted into a dilapidated hall filled with cloaked figures. All were draped in dark robes, and the leadership, identifiable by their attire, occupied the main seats. "I am Commander Jeor Mormont, leader of the Night's Watch at the Wall. Who are you, and what brings you here?" After Summer reiterated their fabricated story, he continued to weave additional details, with Lin Yu fully aware of the narrative. Should they face separate interrogations, Their accounts would align seamlessly, as they had already devised a plan on their journey. Greetings, esteemed commander. We are travelers from the province of Skyrim in the north, journeying toward the unknown. We hail from Huaxia, and it is a distance of at least 1,000 kilometers from Skyrim to here. We have traveled nearly 2 years to arrive at this place. In the snow forest, we encountered strange, unknown undead creatures. Our cart was damaged and lost, and our belongings were buried by an avalanche. Thus, we fled here, where we saw the appearance of a black hole in the sky. Beyond that, we are unclear. Summer spoke slowly. Undead creatures? White walkers. It seems winter is upon us, and the Stark family's words will soon resonate. Brandstar pondered. A heated debate erupted in the hall. Many had not seen White Walkers in over a decade, making it hard to believe such claims based on mere words. However, this was a matter of grave importance for the safety of all Westeros. Silence. Commander Jeor Mormont rapped the table and issued 2 orders. The travelers would temporarily reside at Castle Black, and tomorrow, 30 men would be dispatched in 3 patrols to scout the snowy forests, with one group tasked with investigating the wildling encampment, while the other 2 sought out the whereabouts of the White Walkers. Castle Black lacked many things, but was not short on rooms. Although not particularly clean, after a few hours of tidying up, it was barely habitable. They found themselves in a double room. Lin Yu and Summer unfurled the scroll, but this time, there was no magical fluctuation, no changes whatsoever. Even the original patterns and unknown runes had vanished. After much effort, they nearly resorted to soaking it in water or roasting it over a fire. Had the scroll not been of utmost importance, they might have indeed tried. Summer, do you remember during our crossing, I vaguely felt something emerge in my mind. Lin Yu lay on his bed, inquiring. You felt it too? I thought I was the only one. I sensed my soul merging with something strange. Forget it for now. Let's rest. If your theory is correct, once they locate the White Walkers tomorrow, they should believe us and not make things difficult. Perhaps. Lin Yu closed his eyes, concentrating on that peculiar sensation. Soon, a thick tome appeared in his mind, detailing over 300 types of magic and their applications, along with methods for learning them. With his consciousness, Lin Yu flipped through the pages of the book in his mind, each page's content vividly clear. As he engaged with the magic through the tome, a cluster of starlight gradually expanded. Throughout the night, the starlight continued to spread, and after an unknown duration, it fully coalesced into a luminous sphere, floating within Lin Yu's consciousness. Simultaneously, changes occurred in his mind, as a stream of information surged from the sphere, inundating his brain. Once the onslaught ceased, Lin Yu awoke. He opened his eyes to a ray of sunlight streaming through the window. Although the surrounding temperature remained frigid, it was undoubtedly warmer than the previous day. Acting on an impulse, Lin Yu positioned his hands in an unusual manner, summoning a surge of magical energy. However, this energy quickly became intensely hot, reaching a critical point where Lin Yu felt his palm burning. He severed the connection to the magic, and the fireball shot toward the stone wall of the room. Boom! Like a reinforced detonator, the wall indented slightly. Yet, the flames did not dissipate. They endured for approximately 30 seconds, as the stone wall, being non-flammable, extinguished the fire. On the other bed, Summer, who had been snoring, jolted upright, startled by the loud explosion so close by. As he awoke and beheld the smoldering stone wall, he was taken aback. Even more astonishing was the boundless star cluster that had materialized in his mind, filled with an array of intricate patterns. Crucially, Summer instantly recognized it as the constellation of talents from the Elder Scrolls, where players could enhance their proficiency and illuminate specific constellations by performing corresponding actions in the game, each constellation containing various skills. After exchanging their revelations, both men quickly understood the significance of these changes. Lin Yu then stepped out to procure breakfast for the 2 of them, returning to their room promptly. The hard, dense black bread was so tough that Lin Yu doubted whether it could even shatter stones. Ultimately, the 2 had no choice but to soak it in water until it softened, then swallowed it whole. After finishing breakfast, Lin Yu immediately resumed his attempts to unravel new magical constellations in his mind, while Xia Tian embarked on various endeavors, eventually arriving at the trial grounds of Black Crow Fortress. He borrowed a rusty iron sword from the Night's Watchguards and practiced his slashing against the Scarecrow. With each swing, Xia Tian could feel a particular constellation in his mental star map beginning to expand. According to the information provided by Lin Yu, this expansion signified the acquisition of skills. Once it coalesced and settled in his mind, he would be able to learn the skill. Driven by this realization, Xia Tian fervently continued his slashing practice. 3 days swiftly passed. The tolling of a bell echoed through the wall. Lin Yu found Xia Tian, and they exchanged a knowing glance, instantly understanding one another. They made their way toward the entrance, eager to gather information. For knowing anything, no matter how trivial, was preferable to remaining in ignorance when events unfolded. Within the wall, a single bell toll signified the return of rangers or comrades. 2 tolls indicated a wildling incursion, while 3 tolls warned of an invasion by the others, an occurrence that had not transpired in nearly a century. What if they did not encounter the others? Regardless of whether they spotted the others, they shouldn't pose a significant threat to us. We are merely travelers, not wildlings. We represent a civilization far more distant from the north. Chapter 2. The others? Wildlings? Sorcerers? The tunnel beneath the wall opened, revealing but a single horse, stained with blood. It appears the situation is far worse than we anticipated. Let us return to the council hall and discern their plans. Lin Yu and Xia Tian chose a corner seat in the council chamber, which soon filled with people as they trickled in. As Commander Mormont took his seat, the previously raucous chamber fell silent. 3 days, a full 3 days, and 30 men have not returned. This indicates that something significant has transpired. We must ascertain the truth of the matter, Mormont proclaimed, his voice resonating with authority. An officer beside Mormont voiced dissent, his gaze fixed intently on Lin Yu and Xia Tian. Commander, these 2 must be spies sent by the wildlings, attempting to deplete our ranks. Upon hearing this, many of the Night's Watchmen found the officer's assertion plausible, even factually compelling. Indeed, that is precisely the case. The usual patrols of 7-man ranger teams experience no issues. Why then have these 2 arrived only to stir such chaos? There are no others, only lying wildling scum. We should execute them at once. These 2 deceivers, these spies, let us slay them. The atmosphere turned frigid, silence enveloping the hall, interrupted only by harsh breaths and the cold sound of drawn swords. Most of the Night's Watchmen stood, slowly advancing toward Lin Yu and Xia Tian. I neglected to mention that the majority of the Night's Watch consists of murderers and thieves. This is no longer a noble order of guardians, Lin Yu remarked, leaning back and gathering magical power in his hands. You ought to have informed me sooner. I was under the impression they held more honor and faith. Xia Tian rose as well, unsheathing his rusty iron sword, regretting not seizing the opportunity to procure a new weapon beforehand. With a furious roar, several of the nearest Night's Watchmen charged at them, swords raised. Flames coalesced toward the ceiling, scattering sparks that sent everyone nearby retreating in panic. Enough. The events unfolded too swiftly for the aged Commander Mormont to react. By the time he grasped the situation, it had already transpired. Perhaps it was time to find someone else to take his place, though not just yet. My esteemed sorcerers, please forgive my impetuous men, Mormont said slowly. Everyone, lower your weapons and return to your seats. I am still alive, and I remain your commander, understood? After speaking, Mormont cast a meaningful glance at the officer beside him. Of course, my commander. The officer bowed his head. Internally, many were even more astonished and fearful, for while tales and legends of sorcerers circulated throughout Westeros, few had ever truly encountered one. Perhaps sorcerers in this land were akin to reclusive alchemists, dwelling in isolation for decades, yet not all sorcerers were confined to their homes. Time has a way of diminishing all memories. As the legend of the Long Night faded over 8 millennia, the significance of the wall and the Night's Watch in the hearts of the people transformed from a defense against the others to a bulwark against the southern wildlings. The Night's Watch garnered far less regard, their numbers dwindling severely, hampering the wall's upkeep. Once, members of the Night's Watch were of noble status, and joining their ranks was a matter of great honor for the people of the 7 kingdoms. Presently, however, the Night's Watch was comprised of death row inmates, bastards, and others of lowly standing. The wall, said to have been built 8,000 years ago during the Long Night, marked the end of a terrifying era shrouded in darkness and cold. After the ancestors united with the children of the forest to repel the others in the battle for Dawn, the legendary figure known as Bran the Builder constructed the wall with the aid of giants to protect against future incursions by the others and to safeguard the 7 kingdoms, swearing in a human army known as the Night's Watch to guard it for eternity. I hope you all do not forget your oaths. You have sworn to forsake your pasts. Here, you are granted a new beginning, understood? Mormont declared sternly. Yes, my commander. All the Night's Watchmen responded in unison. This situation is highly irregular. We must travel to Castle Black to inquire further. 200 men, take horses and depart tomorrow. Understood, my commander. Bring the 2 sorcerers to my chamber. This is homemade blackberry wine from the north. Esteemed sorcerers. Mormont poured himself a cup and took a sip before filling the glasses before Lin Yu and Xia Tian with the blackberry wine. The Northmen harvest blackberries during the bountiful season, cleaning and drying them in brine as the cold season approaches, mixing them with sugar and a touch of inferior brandy and water, unless one is fortunate enough to have better conditions. Please, esteemed sorcerers, sample this. I have a generous supply reserved exclusively for entertaining noble guests visiting the wall. After saying this, Mormont filled his own glass and savored the drink. Clearly, such fine wine was a rarity for Mormont to enjoy. The Rangers serve as the primary fighting force of the Night's Watch, adept at surviving in the wilderness and tasked with reconnaissance and patrolling the haunted forests north of the wall. They defend the wall and engage enemies beyond it, facing not only wildlings but also the mysterious others, which are not of this world. I am well aware of the capabilities of my Rangers. Even if ambushed by wildlings, it is impossible for them all to have perished without a trace. They must have encountered unforeseen circumstances. After a prolonged silence, Lin Yu initiated the conversation. For having demonstrated the power of sorcerer, he now held the upper hand in discourse. Having said so much, Commander, in presenting this rare and exquisite wine, it is evident that you must have a request. My brother and I possess limited strength, and fear we may not be of significant assistance. I ask for your understanding, Commander Mormont. Upon finishing his words, Lin Yu took a delicate sip of the blackberry wine. In his previous life on Blue Star, he had tasted blackberry wine, albeit mostly the synthetic versions laden with hextech chemicals. This authentic, traditionally brewed blackberry wine, however, was remarkably smooth and delightful upon entry. Your belongings have been lost in the frigid north, and you are clad in garments as thin as gossamer. You are bereft of funds, food, and warm clothing. Hence, we propose to hire the 2 of you. As far as I am aware, the Night's Watch is not affluent, and I am a sorcerer with magical prowess. Those who wield magic are capable of resolving the issues you have mentioned. If, Commander, you seek a transaction, you must offer something of tangible value, for wizards are esteemed and noble wherever they may be. For several minutes, the 3 remained silent, with Commander Mormont sipping blackberry wine while contemplating the appropriate offer. For Lin Yu, however, the knowledge retained from a television series from several years past was scant, save for a few profoundly impactful characters or scenes that lingered in his memory. In the series Game of Thrones, the Night King is uniquely portrayed as a being of formidable magical prowess, adept in necromancy, capable of resurrecting the dead as wights, and wielding ice magic. The Night King, the leader of the Army of the Dead, was the first White Walker created by the Children of the Forest to resist the invasion and slaughter by the First Men. He is designated as the source of magical power for all White Walkers and Whites, possessing the ability to transform living male infants into White Walkers and to raise the dead and other deceased creatures as Whites. The Night King's form is imbued with ice magic, capable of extinguishing any flames that approach him, rendering him immune to fire, even dragon fire. Due to the presence of dragonglass within him, weapons forged from dragonglass are ineffective against him. Only Valyrian steel can slay him. His life and death determine the fate of all White Walkers and Whites. As a magical being, the Night King can also create White Walker lieutenants from newly born male infants. These White Walkers possess blue eyes and limited ice magic, commanding hundreds of Whites. The undead, transformed into living dead creatures, are collectively known as Whites. Whites possess the ability of immortality and can only be killed by crushing their skulls or destroying their soul fire. Additionally, they fear dragonglass and Valyrian steel swords. Thus, unless sufficiently tempted, Lin Yu and Xia Tian would never risk their lives for trivial gains. Commander Jeor Mormont unsheathed a Valyrian steel sword from a scabbard at his waist, placing it gently upon the table. This is the ancestral sword of House Mormont from Bear Island, Longclaw, the finest and most powerful weapon in Westeros. In addition, we shall provide you with 10 golden dragons, 50 silver stags, 100 copper stars, along with 2 sets of warm clothing and provisions. Commander Jeor Mormont concluded, glancing at the Longclaw sword before taking a sip of blackberry wine, feeling rather uneasy inside. Compared to the ancestral sword, the safety of Westeros and his role as the leader of the Night's Watch overshadowed this small offering. You are a respected warrior, and we accept this proposal. After some contemplation, Lin Yu acquiesced. Though Lin Yu could not guarantee his ability to withstand the Night King or the wildlings, his capacity for self-preservation was assured, bolstered by the magical knowledge he had acquired in recent days. Healing Hand gradually mends all personal wounds and can also heal others. While the process is slow, it can save lives unless the injuries are fatal. The magical cost is minimal, though the drawback lies in its sluggishness. Summon Wolf, a magical entity formed from condensed magical energy. It can exist for 1 hour, capable of withstanding considerable physical damage, but vulnerable to magical harm, and only 2 can be summoned at once. Flame Tongue. The caster conjures a flame that can continuously scorch a target. The longer it persists, the greater the damage. Lin Yu had tested his ability to sustain it for 5 uninterrupted minutes, but prolonged use could result in self-harm due to magical turmoil. Earth Wall. Concentrating energy to summon earth and stones from the ground to block any range within 5 meters ahead. Lin Yu had tested his magical limits. In the event of battle, he could continuously cast fireball magic for 3 hours, transforming into a human-shaped magical artillery, a veritable mage. Now, having mastered 5 spells, Lin Yu felt confident in protecting both himself and Xia Tian. Most importantly, the Valyrian steel sword was an invaluable treasure. It was rumored that the forging techniques had been lost in Westeros, and perhaps one day, if Xia Tian's forging skills reached a masterful level, he could recreate a new Valyrian weapon. Xia Tian, after days of rigorous training, had significantly improved his physical capabilities and strength, albeit subtly. His swordsmanship had surpassed many, but the seasoned Night's Watchman, relying mostly on brute strength, could easily defeat him within 2 moves. After accepting Jeor Mormont's request, the two returned to their quarters, where they were presented with 2 servings of delectable food, steaming bacon and slightly charred bread. The bacon was delightful, and the freshly baked bread, while not outstanding in flavor, was a considerable improvement over the black bread they had consumed for days. Upon revealing their identities as sorcerers, their treatment had notably improved. As they walked through Castle Black, most of the Night's Watchmen regarded them with respect, none daring to provoke the wrath of a fireball aimed at them. The ceiling of the council chamber, despite several cleanings, still bore the marks of soot and numerous fine cracks, instilling a sense of fear and apprehension among the Night's Watchmen toward sorcerers, worried that their actions might invoke the ire of the mages. Chapter 3. The Snow Troll in the Early Morning. Even as the sun bathed the entire Black Raven fortress in light, the frigid snowflakes, having settled overnight, buried every path leading from the fortress. Yet, each day, dedicated Night Watchmen rose early to clear the way, with monthly rotations for cleaning duties. A contingent of 200 emerged from the tunnel at the Great Wall, and astonishingly, Commander Mormont had brought along a cart filled with ordinary beer, in addition to essential supplies. As 3 hours passed, the lengthy procession slowed considerably. Despite Commander Mormont's assurance that only 5 kilometers remained, traversing the snow-laden forest proved excruciatingly difficult. Each step could plunge one knee deep into hidden pits. Suddenly, a roar echoed from a distance, causing the horses to whinny in alarm. The roar grew closer, and 3 enormous, snow-white figures emerged from the mist. "Steady your horses, remain vigilant," Commander Mormont shouted. Everyone drew their iron swords as 3 towering figures, standing 3 meters tall, with snowy fur and the visage of great apes, approached, their blood-red eyes glinting ominously. Trolls. How could this be? The existence of snow trolls in this world is unimaginable. Lin Yu, with his keen eyesight, quickly identified the monstrous beings. Isn't it quite normal to have snow trolls? Does this world lack them? Summer, perplexed by Lin Yu's remarks, exclaimed, "Monsters! Snow giants! Oh my gods! May the 7 protect me and spare me from being devoured." "Impossible. We have never encountered such creatures before." Panic began to ripple through the ranks of the Night Watchmen, as none had ever heard of such bizarre entities. Trolls were colossal ape-like beings, possessing 3 eyes. Their powerful arms and sharp claws could inflict significant physical harm. With formidable defensive capabilities and rapid regenerative powers, their greatest vulnerability lay in flames, which not only inflicted damage but also hindered their healing abilities. Snow trolls represented a more formidable variant, typically inhabiting the high altitudes of the Sky Province. The reason for the appearance of these 3 snow trolls in this locale remained a mystery. According to Lin Yu's knowledge, the realm of Game of Thrones had never seen such creatures, and now, regardless of the cause, they had to confront this reality. With a fireball coalescing in his palm, Lin Yu, having practiced for several days, was now capable of launching 2 simultaneously. After 5 seconds of concentration, he unleashed the fireballs towards the 3 trolls. Embarrassingly, one of the fireballs veered off course, yet the other struck one troll squarely in the chest. The explosion of the fireball ignited the troll's outer skin, and in the blink of an eye, the troll's snowy chest fur turned to ash. The impact sent the creature tumbling backward, propelled by its own momentum, filling the air with a pungent odor of charred flesh. The flames continued to scorch the snow troll's chest, and amidst its anguished cries and frantic rolling, the blaze persisted for 7 or 8 seconds before finally being extinguished. The fireball failed to instill fear in the 3 trolls. Instead, it awakened their primal instincts, provoking them to emit even more savage howls and accelerate towards the crowd. In no time, the 3 trolls lunged at the mounted night watchmen, their colossal forms, terrifying strength, and fearsome claws rendering them deadly foes. In a single encounter, 3 night watchmen had their throats torn open, unable to emit even a cry of anguish. The horses were not spared either, as the claws of the snow trolls pierced through them, wrenching the heads off in a gruesome display. While the snow trolls ravaged their companions, the remaining night watchmen were far from idle. A dozen iron swords swung relentlessly at the trolls, but the thick pelts provided substantial physical resistance, causing only shallow wounds that barely bled. The central position of the squad coincided with the site of the trolls' assault, prompting the front and rear ranks to swiftly encircle and support. Layers of night watchmen surrounded each troll, utilizing their steeds to maneuver, seizing opportunities to strike with cunning blows now and then. Yet, misfortune befell some. Drawing too close, their startled horses faltered, and in instances of poor handling, a few were unseated, meeting a grim fate at the hands of the snow trolls. Arrows rained down, striking the snow trolls, but to little effect. 2 arrows even deflected harmlessly away, perhaps owing to the feeble strength of the archers. Lin Yu launched another fireball, but this time, an unfortunate soul inadvertently obstructed his trajectory while attempting a surprise attack on the trolls. The fireball struck the horse of this night watchman, who let out a pained whinny, its hooves rising in panic from the searing agony, sending its rider tumbling to the ground. Tragically, the snow troll, alerted by the commotion, turned and caught sight of the fallen night watchman. A ferocious claw descended, leaving deep, bone-exposing gashes across the man's face. In his final moments, he fixed a haunting gaze upon Lin Yu, a look that conveyed pure malice, yet within 2 seconds, he succumbed, his eyes remaining wide open in death. The night watchmen surrounding Lin Yu instantly scattered, maintaining a considerable distance of several meters. None dared approach him, for his aim was akin to that of a child practicing archery in a manner at the tender age of 8. Lin Yu's eyes fell upon the lifeless form of the fallen watchman, his body trembling uncontrollably as a wave of dread washed over him. His unsteady breath and faltering spirit caused the fireball he had been gathering to dissipate into mere sparks. What have I done? I have indirectly caused a man's death. It is all my fault. Lin Yu's quaking form and voice betrayed him, resembling a 6-year-old child who had committed a grave mistake and was overwhelmed by fear. An angry shout broke through the tumult, snapping Lin Yu back to reality. The snow trolls still loomed, and now was not the time to succumb to fear. As Summer spoke, he raised the Valyrian steel sword, Longclaw, positioning it defensively before Lin Yu. At that moment, the snow troll that had previously withstood the first fireball broke through the encirclement, charging directly towards the 2. Due to the earlier misstep, not a single night watchman dared to intervene or offer assistance to one who had caused the death of a comrade, even if that individual was a mage. Damn troll! As the words left his lips, Summer intercepted the snow troll's claws with the Valyrian sword, yet the immense and terrifying force sent him flying several meters away. Regaining his senses, Lin Yu hastily conjured another spell with trembling hands. Just as the snow troll's claws were about to strike him, a towering earthen wall, measuring 1 meter in height and 2 meters in width, erupted from the ground, lifting up from beneath the troll's feet. The tremendous impact toppled the entire creature. Seizing the opportunity, Lin Yu leaped from his horse onto the earthen wall, elevated and ready to unleash the fire tongue spell. A stream of flames, stretching over 10 meters, erupted from Lin Yu's palm. The fallen snow troll shook its head and attempted to rise, only to be consumed by the inferno, emitting anguished screams. This continued for nearly a minute before Summer, wielding the Valyrian sword, seized the moment to behead the creature, sending its head flying 2 meters away, crashing into the nearby snow. The remaining 2 snow trolls, witnessing the demise of their companion, grew even more ferocious, disregarding their own safety and charging recklessly, determined to take down a human despite sustaining wounds. Breathing heavily, Lin Yu and Summer took a moment to gather themselves, inhaling the cold air to steady their minds, before continuing their assault. Within a span of several minutes, The last two snow trolls were overwhelmed and slain, one by Lin Yu's close-range magic and the other by a flurry of swords. All the night watchmen, exhausted, sat in the snow to rest, each having swung their weapons with full force at least a dozen times, fighting with all their might while ensuring their own safety. A few had merely watched, paralyzed by fear, resembling mere bystanders. These reluctant observers were subsequently assigned the task of collecting the bodies and transporting the snow trolls back to Blackraven Fortress. For such cowards were only fit for menial labor. At the forefront, Commander Mormont and several aides approached Lin Yu, as reports of the preceding events had already reached them. Everyone was aware of what had transpired, understanding that the mage's earlier blunder had cost a comrade's life. Yet they also recognized that this same mage had vanquished 2 trolls with his magic. Without such sorcery, it would have taken at least 13 night watchmen to bring down the last snow troll. Hence, an unspoken agreement lingered among them to refrain from mentioning the mage's mistake, with a few audacious night watchmen even coming forth to pay their respects before dispersing. "Do you know what manner of creature this is, Your Excellency?" Commander Mormont inquired. "A snow troll," Lin Yu replied. "A creature dwelling deep within the snowy terrain, resembling a monstrous ape, known for its immense strength and thick hide. Yet it harbors a fear of fire magic and flames." Lin Yu pondered for a moment before responding. "Indeed. It is quite peculiar that we have resided in the north for many years without ever encountering such a creature. We have not even glimpsed its shadow. Nor is there any mention in the annals of history. It must have come from some distant, snow-covered land. I comprehend now. Thank you for your assistance, mage. Let us vanquish the troll." He waved his hand dismissively, indicating that no gratitude was necessary. Lin Yu was aware that Commander Mormont likely understood the misstep he had just made, yet the decorum befitting a mage of high esteem must still be upheld. Commander Jeor Mormont approached to offer his condolences to Lin Yu and Xia Tian. After gathering information and issuing several commands, he led the troop onward. The 200-strong contingent had suffered the loss of 18 men. Under Commander Mormont's guidance, the once elongated line was condensed into a formation of 5 abreast, with individuals on either flank remaining vigilant to their surroundings. The atmosphere within the troop grew somber. When they had first emerged from the wall, the air had been filled with raucous laughter and playful banter. Yet now, following the unexpected assault from an unfamiliar monster and the loss of several lives, no one dared to utter an ill-timed jest. Chapter 4. Castle Camp. After the encounter with the snow troll, the path behind them descended into an eerie silence, devoid of any signs of wildlife. In the distance, a quaint village emerged from the dense forest, a common sight across the continent of Westeros. A humble household could easily erect such a structure, but here, amidst the harsh, icy conditions, the origin of this village remained a mystery. "We have arrived at Castle Camp. 2 years ago, I passed through here with a band of rangers. Back then, there was just an eccentric old man and a throng of exquisite women. Had it not been for the commander's orders, some of my brothers would have attempted to claim them all. Is that true? I have only recently joined the rangers. Do not deceive me. I must see how many women are here. It has been 2 long years since I laid eyes on a woman. Beware. For the madman Castor despises anyone gazing upon his women. It is a sacred taboo." As Lin Yu listened to the murmurs and gossip among the Night's Watch, he contemplated whether such a disarrayed group could indeed find solace in this place. The troop began to disperse, with several dilapidated and unoccupied cabins presenting themselves. A few aides organized resting quarters for everyone and stationed sentinels, while a dozen individuals accompanied Mormont into the largest building. "Oh, my old friend, you have arrived. And brought a whole entourage with you. It seems nothing has changed. How could it not?" Castor waved his hand, summoning a young girl, presumably no older than 15 or 16. With a glance from Castor, the girl approached, her voice tinged with unease as she recounted their circumstances. "The Lord protects us, provides us with food and shelter. We are quite content here." Upon finishing her account, the girl appeared to exhale a sigh of relief. The young girl was dressed in rags, her arms marred by bruises, starkly contrasting with her words. Everyone could see the truth of her situation at a glance. Yet it was a private matter, and in this land of Westeros, many had witnessed far worse fates. Hence, no one spoke up. Though several officers cast furtive glances at her figure, reminiscent of their nocturnal escapades to the brothels near the wall. After listening to the girl, Mormont sighed, choosing not to elaborate. "Are you envious? I possess a house full of women and tend to a herd of livestock, living a life of contentment," he remarked. Seeing Mormont sigh, Castor could not help but mock. "Our paths diverge." Mormont retorted, "Oh, certainly. You have chosen to dwell among a multitude of men, gnawing on black bread and enduring the cold and solitude. An ordinary person would never select your route. This is my choice." Castor replied defiantly. But enough of that. I wish to inquire where the wildlings have gone. Our journey has yielded nothing but the snow beasts, with no sign of any other wildlings. He drained the remaining beer from his cup, gesturing with the empty vessel before Mormont. Mormont turned and signaled to several officers to bring in the cart full of ale. It was evident he was well acquainted with men like Castor. He could predict their desires with his eyes closed. Lin Yu, observe that girl. She has clearly endured unfair treatment. We ought to assist her. Summer's gaze was immediately drawn to the scars on the girl's arms, rather than the pale, delicate skin beneath her tattered clothing. The wildlings often proclaimed their freedom, yet what they truly sought was the liberty of the strong, allowing the powerful among them to take multiple wives. Their freedom built upon the subjugation of the weak. Do you wish to be the hero who rescues the damsel? But then what? She is not the only one here. There are many girls, and we cannot afford to clash with the Night's Watch just yet. If this is the wildlings' way of life, perhaps we should strive to understand rather than disrupt it. Do you believe the Night's Watch will care for these girls? Their fates may endure even harsher trials. Lin Yu whispered in response to Summer. But this, Summer fell into contemplation. In Blue Star, Summer belonged to those who champion justice, always ready to draw his sword for the oppressed. There was even an instance when he witnessed a child being abducted by human traffickers, and without hesitation, he charged in to rescue the child, sustaining a wound on his arm in the process, ultimately earning a small banner for his bravery. Though Lin Yu did not possess such fervor for these matters, the haunting memories of previous misfortunes had left his heart in turmoil. According to Blue Star's laws, must one life be exchanged for another, or must a far graver price be paid, especially when his initial intentions had stemmed from goodwill? The circumstances encountered at that moment might have been mitigated had one managed to remain calm and hone their magical skills through diligent practice, thus preventing such an occurrence. However, the event has transpired, and no one has yet sought retribution. Though Lin Yu harbors a sense of guilt, he has gained a renewed understanding of this merciless world, reshaping his worldview. I am unfamiliar with the snow-dwelling creatures, yet all the wildlings in this vicinity have pledged allegiance to Mance Raider. Upon seeing a large crate of beer in the room, Cast began to speak again. Mance Raider, your old friend, do you still remember him? He is now the king beyond the wall, commanding all wildlings who now follow his every word. After taking a sip of beer, Cast continued. Mance Raider was a wildling child taken in and raised by the Night's Watch. He was once a loyal member of the Night's Watch until he was injured during a patrol and rescued by a wildling woman. During his recovery, the woman mended Mance's torn cloak with red fabric. Upon returning to the wall, the commander of the Night's Watch insisted that Mance don the standard black cloak. This trivial infringement on his personal freedom compelled Mance to abandon the Night's Watch and live according to his desires among the wildlings. Mance took on the mantle of leadership, uniting all wildlings for the formidable task of invading the Seven Kingdoms. He claimed to possess the magical horn, the Horn of Winter, capable of bringing down the wall. If the wildling forces cannot breach the wall, he will sound the horn and obliterate it. I, for one, do not believe in such magic. It is merely a deceitful trick, a ruse to fool the uncivilized wildlings. After Cast finished speaking, he continued to drink deeply from his beer. However, the expressions of Mormont and all the officers darkened, for while Cast, the madman, may not believe in the wildlings, they had no choice but to do so, as their ranks contained a sorcerer. In that moment, all eyes instinctively turned to Lin Yu, who was still indulging in blackberry wine, a few bottles of which Mormont had secretly provided. Lin Yu, gnawing on a piece of jerky and sipping his blackberry wine, suddenly noticed that everyone was gazing at him, realizing the earth-shattering nature of Cast's words. Ahem, as for this magical horn, I am not well versed, but this world does possess its share of peculiarities. It is not beyond the realm of possibility. Just like the snow trolls, I have only heard of them, yet this is my first encounter. After Lin Yu spoke, he continued to munch on the jerky, the biting cold heightening his hunger. So, where are the wildlings now? Where have they gone? Mormont snapped back to reality and promptly inquired again. Cast did not respond immediately. Instead, he observed that everyone was suddenly fixated on Lin Yu, curiously appraising him for a moment. He noted that Lin Yu's attire differed from that of the others. Although he wore warm clothing and a black cloak, he was not clad in the Night's Watch's gear. Summer, too, was similarly dressed, and at Summer's waist hung a splendid sword sheath adorned with several small, inconspicuous gems, igniting Cast's avarice. Last time, I encountered a wild boar in the snow forest. After I pierced it with my spear and dragged it home, I suddenly realized that I lacked a proper sword to carve the meat, which left me immensely frustrated. Cast sighed deliberately after speaking, his gaze fixed intently on the scabbard of Xia Tian's sword. Commander Jeor Mormont immediately discerned Cast's desire, for he was well acquainted with both Cast and Xia Tian's scabbard, which had been at his own waist just yesterday. Deputy Demon Rogers, remove your sword and return to Blackraven Fortress. I shall have the blacksmith forge you a new iron sword, said Jeor Mormont. An iron sword was presented to Cast, yet his expression soured. Cast believed that the old man, Jeor Mormont, surely understood his intentions, but to receive merely an iron sword felt like an affront to his dignity. I refuse this iron sword. I desire the young man's sword. If you grant me that blade, I shall share the information with you, Cast declared, gesturing toward Xia Tian's sword. The several aides quickly recognized the ownership of Xia Tian's sword, having followed Commander Jeor Mormont for so long. They knew well that the sword was one he kept by his bedside, even in slumber, though they were baffled as to how it had come into Xia Tian's possession. Nonetheless, they understood the sword's worth. That won't do. This is a friend of a wizard. Cast, I trust you can discern the gravity of the situation, Jeor Mormont firmly rejected. A wizard? Huh. You amuse me. A flock of black crows still believes in the existence of wizards. Has the northern wind blown snowflakes into your brains, leaving you frozen and foolish? Cast laughed heartily, spilling his drink all over the floor. Lin Yu, observing the troublesome old man, was not inclined to tolerate him. Xia Tian, the firewood in the bonfire is nearly consumed. Toss some of the dry wood beside you into the flames to intensify the fire, Lin Yu instructed, already gathering magical energy in his hands. Upon hearing Lin Yu's words, Xia Tian immediately understood his intent and tossed some damp wood, still carrying snow melt, into the bonfire in the hall. The melting snow water instantly extinguished the flames, leaving only smoldering coals. Oh, for heaven's sake! Do you not know that wet wood must be dried before it can be used in the bonfire? Have you black crows truly frozen your brains? Should I have Cast repair your minds? Cast bellowed, brandishing a small axe from his waist. Lin Yu stood in front of Xia Tian, signaling for Cast to calm down. Upon seeing this, Cast halted, curious to see what these black crows intended. Lin Yu directed both hands toward the fire pit, and the searing flames surged toward the damp wood, sustaining for a full minute. The Night's Watch present were unfazed, having witnessed similar feats during their battles against snow trolls. Yet for Cast, it was the first time he beheld such wondrous magic. How is this possible? Is there truly magic in this world? It is terrifying, this intense flame. Cast exclaimed in astonishment, returning to his seat on the wooden bench, his chest rising and falling rapidly as he murmured in disbelief. Mr. Cast, the saber belonging to my friend is exceedingly precious, acquired at great cost. I wonder if you could possibly choose another iron sword? After Lin Yu finished speaking, he paused to continue casting the fire tongue spell. Very well, let us exchange it for an iron sword, Cast stammered, the scene before him evoking haunting memories. Commander Mormont retrieved the aide's saber and handed it to Cast, who merely picked up the iron sword and carelessly set it aside. He summoned a young maiden to refill a cup of beer, and after downing it in one gulp, his trembling body gradually stilled. Mansdry and his wild men were all gathered on the shores of the trembling sea, at the closest point to Stode's Corner. Cast, my men and I require 3 days of lodging, as your location is the nearest to Stode's Corner, Commander Mormont declared. No, absolutely not. My women are here. You ravenous crows shall not monopolize this place. Cast retorted. We bring you fine wine and excellent weapons. We come in goodwill, Mormont urged. But you must ensure that not a single crow dares to lay a hand on my women, not even the sorcerers. Cast insisted, casting a furtive glance at Lin Yu. Not a problem at all. I assure you, no Night's Watchman will touch your women. Mormont readily agreed. After Mormont's assurance, he looked toward Lin Yu, knowing he could manage the Night's Watchman, but the sorcerers were another matter altogether. Of course, I have no interest in the wild women, Lin Yu replied nonchalantly. Once the negotiations concluded, everyone exited Cass Hall and returned to the dilapidated shacks nearby, while the aides accompanied Mormont to a separate room to discuss strategies. The news they had received today was both shocking and terrifying. All the wild men had congregated, and the Night's Watchman had no clear understanding of the numbers of wild men in the snow forest, but it was certain they were vast. Mormont recalled several wild tribes he had encountered, and there were undoubtedly many more he had not. Most critically, the possibility that Mansdry possessed magical weapons instilled fear that the Great Wall might fall. Chapter 5. Sacrifice on a frigid night. One of Cast's young wives was in labor, her cries piercing through the howling winds that swept across the snow forest. Please, let it not be a boy, let it not be, she prayed, enduring the excruciating pain. The other maidens stood by, numbly assisting with the delivery, providing hot water and towels, wiping away the amniotic fluid and blood that flowed repeatedly. If not cleaned properly, the biting cold would freeze everything, leading to dire consequences. Many were kept awake by the anguished cries from the delivery. the howling wind scarcely louder than the maideness voice. This woman must have the gift of the bard. Her voice is thunderous. It's unbearable. Such remarks echoed throughout the quarters of the Night's Watchman, while Summer, unable to sleep, resorted to exercising, push-ups and sit-ups. Summer endeavored to induce fatigue within the body, hoping to elicit drowsiness. Yet, the more one exercised, the more invigorated one became. As the celestial map in Summer's mind became dispersed, a surge of energy reverberated back to her, unbeknownst to her own consciousness. After several days of rigorous training, the first minuscule star cluster began to hover amidst the celestial chart. The radiance emanating from this cluster filled Summer with a sense of vitality, leading her to conclude that this celestial formation signified an enhancement of her physical prowess. At the sound of an infant's wail, a newborn was raised aloft by a group of maidens, their faces draining of color as they gazed down upon the child. It was a boy. Why, oh why? Was it a boy? Their lamentations echoed with heart-wrenching sorrow, despite the fact that those who had just given birth should have felt joyous. However, the sound of the baby's cries compelled Cass to hastily enter the room. Upon discovering the boy, a knowing smile graced his countenance. Wrapping the newborn in tattered cloth, Cass exited the room, the modest fabric causing the infant to wail in the biting cold, the cries resonating hauntingly through the darkened snow-laden woods. Are you not yet asleep? Summer, with such exertion, be wary of not keeping pace tomorrow. It would be wise to rest early, Lin Yu remarked, slightly drowsy, casting a glance at Summer, who was still engaged in her exercise before returning to prepare for slumber. A surge of magical energy coursed through her body, providing a sense of warmth in winter's chill. Even in the frigid air, Lin Yu felt the nurturing essence of magic within her, circulating like a warm current that offered some respite from the cold. 50 push-ups, and then I shall rest, Summer declared. Upon completing her push-ups and consuming 3 jugs of warm water, she began to feel a tinge of weariness, yet was suddenly overtaken by a pressing urge to relieve herself. Upon opening the door, she noticed that the howling winds and snow had inexplicably ceased. Despite the absence of the frigid gale, the temperature had plummeted further. Finding a nearby tree, Summer discreetly attended to her needs when she spotted a shadowy figure approaching, a small oil lamp in hand. Upon closer inspection, she recognized it as that eccentric old man, Cass. Why was he wandering in the dark, snow-covered woods at this hour, acting so furtively? There must be something amiss. After finishing her business and adjusting her clothing, she carefully concealed herself behind a larger tree, observing as Cass made his way back to his dwelling with the lamp. Following his footprints, Summer embarked on a cautious exploration of his recent path. A faint cry of a baby reached her ears, growing louder as she approached. Following the sound, she discovered an infant abandoned in a snow pit, surrounded by peculiar symbols that resembled an indecipherable script. Cradling the child, Summer intended to return to her quarters to inform everyone of her findings. Just then, the sound of hooves crunching through the snow pierced the silence, and a pair of striking blue eyes became vividly apparent. Recalling Lin Yu's earlier descriptions of this world, Summer recognized at once that it was a white ghost, mounted upon a skeletal steed, wielding a staff of pure ice over a meter long. The white specter approached relentlessly on its undead steed, sending chills racing down Xia Tian's spine. Under the moonlight, he could discern the faint outline of the specter's form, yet the surrounding darkness of the snowy forest rendered its presence extraordinarily terrifying. He ran, furiously sprinting, retracing his steps as he fled, while the specter, momentarily taken aback, quickly resumed its pursuit. Now was not the time for bravado, for no one rises at such an hour to relieve themselves armed. Perhaps Commander Mormont had such a habit, but Xia Tian did not. As he ran, he glanced back, noticing a horde of corpse ghouls had joined the specter, their speed nearly matching that of the horse. Pain tore through his lungs, each breath a struggle, yet he dared not falter. The specter was mere steps behind him. Fortunately, he spotted the flickering torches of the cast camp ahead. Just then, a spear hurtled through the darkness, slicing through the air with a menacing whistle, aimed directly at him. Exhausted and cradling an infant, evasion seemed impossible. The spear, forged of pure ice, impaled Xia Tian's knee, shattering bone and flesh, pinning him to the ground. Ah, it hurts. Oh no. His agonizing scream echoed, rousing the night watchmen, who swiftly armed themselves and emerged from their quarters. Lin Yu, awakened by the familiar cry, although still drowsy, instinctively sensed the urgency. He had been subconsciously honing new magical skills during his slumber. Upon exiting his chamber, Lin Yu beheld the standoff, 2 factions poised against one another, with Xia Tian skewered by the spear, while the ominous figure of the specter on horseback sent a chill of dread through all present. Realizing the gravity of the situation, he concentrated his magic, a fireball swirling in his palm, and launched 2 fiery orbs toward the specter. The specter, seeing the approaching fireballs, hastily conjured another ice spear. But it was too late. The fireballs detonated upon impact, one striking the specter while the other soared toward the throng of corpse ghouls behind it. 3 ghouls were obliterated, while 2 others were ignited by the splintering flames, consumed within moments as if they were mere kindling. As the black smoke dissipated, the specter's icy armor shattered, scattering like glass upon the ground, having absorbed the brunt of the fireball's wrath. The specter emitted an eerie growl, and the corpse ghouls surged toward the night watchman, plunging the scene into chaos. A dozen seasoned watchmen, overcoming their own trepidation, charged at the mounted specter, determined to seize their foe. Lin Yu unleashed a barrage of fireballs, toppling a multitude of ghouls, and amidst the turmoil, he raced to Xia Tian's side. Utilizing the flame tongue spell, he melted the ice spear and dragged the unconscious Xia Tian toward the safety of the room. The infant still clutched tightly in Xia Tian's embrace. Although Lin Yu was uncertain about the events that had transpired, particularly the sudden invasion by the white ghosts, it was evident that Xia Tian, who lay unconscious while cradling an infant, was intricately connected to this unforeseen occurrence. The magic coalesced into a radiant white light, gently flowing towards Xia Tian's wounds. Under the influence of this luminescent magic, the bleeding was staunched. Upon closer inspection, one could observe ruptured blood vessels gradually mending, and shattered cartilage also beginning to heal. First the blood vessels, followed by the muscle layers, and finally the surface of the skin. Lin Yu's magical healing touch was capable of remedying most non-fatal injuries, yet it bore the flaw of being slow. It took 5 minutes merely to restore the blood vessels, with additional time required for the flesh, cartilage, muscle layers, and skin. But why was this happening? I had made the sacrifice. The Night King had promised me this would not occur. Cast's frantic shouts echoed as he brandished an axe, felling several corpses. The wail of the infant emerged from Lin Yu's room, and the frenzied Cast, upon hearing that familiar cry, dashed into the room. There, he beheld the gravely injured Xia Tian on the ground, alongside the scene of radiant white light healing her wounds, with the infant positioned beside her. The very offering Cast had sacrificed to the white ghosts. In order to ensure the safety of his camp, Cast had struck a bargain with the Night King, agreeing to sacrifice a male infant every 3 months in exchange for protection. Due to Xia Tian's actions, the white ghosts interpreted Cast's failure to uphold his end of the bargain and issued orders for the corpses to besiege his camp. Bloodshed ensued, with bodies strewn across the ground, as night watchmen continued to fall, while the number of corpses swelled from over 100 to nearly 800. The situation was dire. Lin Yu remained vigilant, monitoring Xia Tian's recovery while being acutely aware of his surroundings. Upon witnessing Cast burst into the room, rushing toward the infant with axe in hand, Lin Yu halted his healing and delivered a powerful punch to Cast's face, sending him sprawling. Cast, a frail old man in his 60s or 70s, had somehow managed to survive thus far, despite his reckless lifestyle. Curse it! Curse it! Why do you ruin my sacrifice? Now everyone shall perish. Cast spat blood as he screamed at Lin Yu in a frenzy. Sacrificing a living infant for protection, scum like you have no right to live. Lin Yu retorted furiously upon understanding the situation. Magic coalesced anew, flames erupting toward Cast as temperatures soared, accompanied by Cast's agonizing screams. Within mere minutes, his entire exterior was reduced to charred remains, a noxious scent of burnt flesh permeating Lin Yu's room. As Lin Yu prepared to resume healing Xia Tian, a group of 7 or 8 corpses burst into the room. He swiftly confronted them, dispatching them effortlessly with a few fireballs. After eliminating the immediate threat, Lin Yu stepped outside to assess the situation beyond. The vigil, once comprising nearly 200 souls, now dwindled to merely 50, encircled back to back, besieged by the relentless whites. Despite the Night's Watch's formidable defense, for every white vanquished, 2 or 3 more would surge forward. Some of these abominations wielded tattered weapons. Though worn, they posed a significant threat. The critical issue lay in the whites' utter disregard for death, while the Night's Watch knew little of their vulnerabilities. Retreat. Make for the wall. Morn commanded the remaining members of the Watch, urging them towards the stables to procure steeds. If we linger, we shall perish. Lin Yu hastily gathered 2 wooden poles and a piece of burlap, fashioning a makeshift stretcher to covertly transport Xia Tian. Fortunately, the whites' attention was predominantly fixated on the Night's Watch, affording Lin Yu a fleeting opportunity to escape. Chapter 6. The Mysterious Cave as Dawn Broke. The expanse of white snow enveloped the unknown territory, presenting a daunting predicament. In the chaos of the night's flight, the path had been chosen in haste. And now the decision loomed: continue onward or retrace steps. At intervals, crows circled ominously overhead, cawing intermittently, igniting Lin Yu's trepidation that they might mistake Xia Tian's lifeless form for carrion. Glancing back, he noted the footprints had been slowly buried beneath the accumulating snow. Turning back now might lead to further disorientation. What to do? If only I had a navigator, even a faulty one that could serve as a compass. After resting for a spell, Lin Yu discovered a cave nestled beneath a snow-capped mountain. Exhausted and famished, he found that melting some snow could resolve his thirst. Though his provisions had long been depleted, the cave was spacious. Upon a brief exploration, he encountered a trove of animal bones scattered about. Curiously, several short spears and bone daggers lay within, leading Lin Yu to suspect it might have been a temporary refuge for wild inhabitants. An hour later, under the gentle ministrations of healing hands, Xia Tian finally regained consciousness. From her lips, Lin Yu learned the harrowing events of the previous night. What became of that infant boy? Where is he? Xia Tian inquired. At the Castor encampment, he was taken from our room while you were unconscious. The situation was dire. Whites were everywhere. Lin Yu recounted the night's tumult. The boy was seized by the whites, and others sought your life. But I managed to intervene. My ability to save you relied on the Night's Watch confronting the whites. Otherwise, you would surely have perished. I never anticipated such a turn of events. I put everyone in jeopardy. I am truly sorry. The past is behind us. We must look ahead. This world is inherently cruel. It is not a game. You are right. As their conversation unfolded, an ominous sound echoed from the depths of the cave. A massive stone was being pushed aside, revealing shadowy figures lurking just beyond. The Falmo, or snow elves, originally belonged to an ancient lineage of elves that migrated to the snowy skies. Due to their diminutive stature and pallid skin, they are referred to as snow elves, a unique species visible only in the celestial realms. This marks the second appearance of a creature from the Elder Scrolls universe, indicating that some peculiar transformation has transpired in this world. Summer was taken aback, exclaiming, "That creature resembles a white-skinned goblin. Are you certain it is a snow elf?" Lin Yu, somewhat vexed, replied, "Absolutely. Do you think snow elves resemble those winged, white-haired Lolas from Japanese anime? This isn't a cartoon." Well, I had my expectations. But I never imagined the snow elves of the Elder Scrolls would look like this. It's truly bizarre. While the two conversed, 5 or 6 snow elves managed to completely displace a massive stone, emitting strange cries as each wielded a weapon. Upon uncovering the stone, the snow elves charged at the duo. Noticing their advance, Summer swiftly drew his Valyrian steel longsword, but the snow elves were alarmingly swift. Before he could fully unsheath his blade, they were nearly upon him. Clang! 2 short swords slashed towards Summer, who managed to parry with his sword. The diminutive snow elves relentlessly struck, leaving him no opportunity to counterattack, while the sounds of clashing weapons echoed fiercely around them. Lin Yu, on the other hand, faced his own challenges. As a mage, he had already begun gathering magical energy while the stones were still shifting. Ever vigilant since arriving in this world, he sought to ensure his safety against any threats. However, he found himself confronting 4 snow elves. He first unleashed 2 fireballs, dispatching 2 of them before erecting an earthen wall to create distance. Then, he commenced the summoning of a spectral wolf. The snow elves moved with remarkable speed. Casting fireballs or flame tongues at close range would surely result in self-harm. With Summer preoccupied, Lin Yu could only rely on the summoning spell to provide a frontline shield while he positioned himself to strike from behind. Among all Lin Yu's spells, the summoning incantation was the slowest, requiring intricate steps. As it conjured a magical creature from his own mana, he first had to construct a mana core, which served as the driving force and energy source for the magical being. Once the mana core was established, he needed to infuse it with magical energy. Although the entire process took only 7 or 8 seconds, in the heat of battle, mere seconds could prove fatal. At that moment, Lin Yu felt fortunate that the earthen wall he had erected in the cave was perfectly sealed, leaving no gaps for the 2 snow elves to exploit as they furiously battered against the wall with their weapons. His combat experience was still insufficient. Had he prepared the summoned creature in advance, he would not have found himself in such a chaotic predicament. Yet, there were no what-ifs. He had to confront the situation at hand. How? Success. A spectral wolf, approximately 1 meter in length, materialized before Lin Yu, growling as it circled him twice before affectionately nudging his pant leg. As the creator of this summoned entity, Lin Yu's magical core sustained it, ensuring an innate bond of loyalty and affection, an unwavering allegiance to its master. The earthen wall, riddled with cracks, crumbled into a mass of mud and sand at that very moment. The destructive force of the snow spirits surpassed Lin Yu's expectations. As the dust settled, the reason became apparent. The initial explosion of the fireball had summoned even more snow spirits from the depths of their cave. The situation was dire. Originally, only 2 snow spirits remained, but now 5 more had emerged, totaling 7, accompanied by a strange insect-like creature. "How do you plan to handle this?" came the inquiry from Xia Tian, who was glancing at Lin Yu, a bone dagger protruding from her waist. Xia Tian's long claws, forged from Valyrian steel, were still dripping with azure blood, clearly indicating that she had sustained injuries to vanquish 2 of the snow spirits, a costly exchange that left her with a painful wound. Just the sight of it made Lin Yu wince. "What manner of creature is that insect beside the snow spirits?" "Do you know, Xia Tian?" Lin Yu inquired. "That is a careless magic worm, a parasitic creature enslaved by the snow spirits. It is terrified of flames, so beware of its venomous saliva. If struck, one risks succumbing to poison and possibly being infested with careless eggs. Quite dreadful." The careless worm emitted a piercing scream and charged towards the phantom wolf, only to be met with a blast of fiery breath. However, the phantom wolf merely shook its head, casting the venom to the ground. The sharp fangs of the phantom wolf sank into the worm's neck, splattering yellow ichor everywhere, some droplets hitting the ground and releasing a noxious green smoke. A torrent of flames surged towards the 5 snow spirits, each clad in fur that served as natural fuel. The flames engulfed them, eliciting horrific shrieks as they charged towards Lin Yu. As they drew nearer, Lin Yu had no choice but to cease his fire spell. Xia Tian, drawing her bone dagger, inhaled sharply, but there was no time for respite. She immediately rushed to assist Lin Yu, confronting the flaming, frenzied snow spirits with her sword. With a decisive strike, Xia Tian cleaved a diminutive snow spirit in twain, its blue blood and entrails extinguishing the flames upon it. Yet it felt no pain, for it was already dead. A spear flew through the air, hurled by one of the flaming snow spirits, but its aim was compromised by the chaos of fire surrounding it. Lin Yu watched as the spear lodged itself before him, swallowing hard. Had it not been for the flames, it surely would have struck true. If given the chance, Lin Yu resolved to learn a spell for timely defense, rather than merely witnessing the impending attacks. 2 snow spirits lay charred and lifeless, while another 2 had rolled on the ground to extinguish their flames. After slaying one of the snow spirits, Xia Tian charged forward, each step spilling copious amounts of her blood. The wounded snow spirits were easily dispatched, their heads severed by Xia Tian's blade, while Lin Yu hastily cast a spell to staunch the bleeding. Under the influence of the healing magic, the wounds ceased to bleed and the deterioration was halted. The spectral wolf successfully severed Cheruz's head, yet its form began to flicker intermittently, and after a few moments, it gradually dissipated into nothingness. The battle had concluded, and for the next several hours, Lin Yu prioritized healing Xia Tian's injuries. Once restored, the 2 prepared to venture deeper into the cave to explore what treasures the snow spirits might possess. Unbeknownst to them, a raven had been observing the entire scene from the cave's entrance. If Lin Yu had noticed it, he would have seen that the raven possessed 3 eyes, an unusual sight that would surely evoke certain memories. However, the raven seemed content to remain concealed, quietly watching the pair without making any further moves. As the long night stretched on under the moonlight, Lin Yu, aided by the campfire, skewered a snow rabbit over the flames. This fortunate encounter occurred while he was outside the cave, observing the weather. "Hey, leave me a rabbit leg. And don't forget the liver, lungs, and kidneys. I'm gravely injured and need to replenish my strength," Lin Yu mused before deciding against making such demands. Realizing that Xia Tian had suffered enough and it would be unkind to compete with his good friend for meat. Thus, the little snow rabbit became their dinner. Though scant in quantity, the meat, charred by the flames, was surprisingly tender and delicious despite its lack of flavor. If given another chance, Lin Yu resolved to carry spices and salt on future outings, essential provisions for outdoor meals that would surely enhance their culinary experience. In the realm of sustenance, Lin Yu had been fortunate to acquire a modicum of grilling skills during his time on Blue Star. Should the ingredients be plentiful, he would gladly prepare a sumptuous barbecue feast in the wild. Chapter 7. The Captive Wood Spirits and the Wild Woman Deep Within the Snow Spirit Cave. Lin Yu and Xia Tian rummaged through a chaotic assortment of items: Charu's eggs, Charu's horn fragments, Charu's exoskeletons, snow spirit spears, snow spirit short spears, and snow spirit daggers. After an extensive search, they found themselves surrounded by worthless debris, the snow spirit's weapons feeling more like toys in their hands. The snow spirit longsword was only marginally longer than a dagger, rendering it impractical for use. As they delved further, despite the abundance of rubbish. The depths of the cave revealed a hidden beauty. Bioluminescent fungi adorned some of the rocky surfaces, providing a semblance of light. Although Lin Yu still had to summon fire elemental magic to illuminate many areas of the cavern. Suddenly, a structure resembling a tent came into view, a snow spirit tent. Its framework composed entirely of Charu's exoskeletons, covered with various animal hides. The sight was unsettling, as entering the tent felt akin to stepping into the maw of a monstrous creature, sending shivers down one's spine. Lin Yu, look. There's a Charus. But it appears to be deceased. Wait, something seems off. Xia Tian cautioned. Be careful. I will conjure a fireball to test the waters. You step back. A fireball was hurled forth, and to everyone's astonishment, it detonated, reducing the Kalis to mere fragments. As the flames illuminated the surroundings, the two were finally able to discern that it was a long-deceased Kalis merely repurposed as a decorative object. Despite its ornamental status, the explosion revealed an object resembling a box, its shell shattered. The force of the fireball had fortuitously opened the box, unveiling its contents. Inside lay a peculiar small artifact, resembling a Kalis limb, but polished to such a degree that it resembled a key. Had it not been for a short cord attached, adorned with a luminous transparent bead at its center, Lin Yu might have mistaken it for a necklace. After examining it for a while without discovering any peculiar effects, though the glimmering bead was visually appealing, Lin Yu instructed Xia Tian to use the Valyrian steel sword to extract the bead and place it in his pocket for future study. Continuing their search, they found nothing of utility beyond some animal hides and various bones. The pair delved deeper into the cave, realizing that they had traversed for 7 or 8 minutes, suggesting the cavern's considerable depth. Had Lin Yu and Xia Tian not arrived, this place would undoubtedly have become a thriving stronghold for the snow sprites. As they pressed onward, a grand doorway appeared before them, still in the distinctive Kalis insect shell style. They had grown accustomed to such architecture, as the snow sprites exclusively utilized insect shells for construction. Lin Yu attempted to push the Kalis shell door, but it remained immovable. After exploring the surroundings for any mechanisms, he decided to have Xia Tian cleave the door open. As Xia Tian approached, a faint glow emanated from his pocket, causing the insect shell door to slowly open, reminiscent of the automatic doors on Blue Star, which intrigued Lin Yu. Were it not for the door's unappealing exterior, he mused that such a design would lend an air of sophistication to a castle or villa. Upon the door's opening, a prison cell constructed from Kalis insect legs came into view, housing a female wildling and a tall figure whose skin resembled a tree-like shell, akin to Marvel's Groot, embodying the appearance of a humanoid treant. Who are you? Are you here to rescue us? Inquired the wildling. Both the forest child and I have been captured by the snow dwarves and imprisoned here. Please free us, she pleaded. The forest seer will be grateful, and you shall earn the friendship of our wood sprites. Perhaps due to their prolonged confinement, before Lin Yu could inquire further, the captives promptly divulged their identities and origins, eagerly seeking assistance. Upon opening the cell and severing the ropes binding them with his sword, Lin Yu ignited the surroundings with flames, eliciting gasps of awe from the wildling. Fire magic. My heavens, are you a powerful sorcerer or priest? Please allow me to serve you. I am a free citizen of the Iron Crow tribe. Surely the divine has sent you to rescue us. Thank you, celestial beings. The wild woman, filled with excitement, prostrated herself on the ground, repeatedly bowing her head and shouting fervently. After her outburst, she unexpectedly knelt before Lin Yu, lifting his shoe as if to kiss it, startling him. Ultimately, it was only at Lin Yu's command that she ceased her frenzied actions. This spectacle left Xia Tian feeling quite disheartened. The treatment afforded to the mage was indeed exceptional. With a mere display of his magical prowess, all were entranced and fell to their knees in reverence. Magician, even from beyond the gate, I sense the immense magical energy that envelopes you. We, the wood elves, are grateful for your assistance, remarked a nearby wood elf. Do you possess magical abilities as well? Lin Yu inquired, studying the wood elf intently. After a moment of contemplation, he discerned a subtle magical aura emanating from the wood elf. Though distinct from his own magical attributes, it was easily identifiable, imbued with the essence of the forest. With hands gathered, the wood elf summoned a vibrant flower that blossomed in his grasp, releasing a stream of green luminescent pollen that floated towards Lin Yu before vanishing abruptly. However, Lin Yu noticed a faint floral fragrance emanating from him, a scent so delicate that it would go unnoticed unless one were to inhale deeply. This fragrance would linger for approximately a month, impervious to cleansing even through bathing. This is a unique mark of our wood elf kin. The fragrance signifies that you have aided our kind. Should my people encounter you, they will express their gratitude and bestow gifts upon you. I have pressing matters to attend to. I must return to my tribe to relay the events that have transpired here. The snowfields are no longer tranquil, the wood elf declared, leaving behind a distinctive branch that had grown from his being, which he presented to Lin Yu. He then departed the cave, heading eastward, informing Lin Yu that the branch would guide him to the wood elf tribe. Are you the last of the Iron Crow tribe? Lin Yu asked the wild woman. Not at all, great deity. I am a member of the Iron Crow Patrol, and we number 10 in total. However, the others have fallen victim to the snow dwarfs. Had you not come to rescue me, I might have become the next meal for those wretched creatures by tomorrow, she replied, her expression darkening. Many of her childhood companions had perished, yet her demeanor soon shifted to one of acceptance, in the harsh laws of survival in the snow. Every free soul possesses a resilient spirit. What is your name? You need not address me as great deity. Simply call me Lin Yu. Do you know when these snow elves and dwarfs first appeared? Lin Yu inquired once more. About a week ago, a pit suddenly appeared in the sky, leading everyone to believe that a deity had descended. All tribes gathered to pray, but the following day, the pit unleashed a horde of terrifying monsters. It was a horrifying massacre. Ultimately, it was the giant tribe that safeguarded the rest of the wild people, allowing them to escape. But it is said that only 5 returned from the giant tribe, she recounted. The giant tribe had once been the mightiest among the free folk of the snow, boasting hundreds of formidable giants, yet they had now fallen into decline. Xia Tian, meanwhile, began counting on his fingers, realizing that, according to the timeline and the wild woman's account, all of this stemmed from their arrival and the consequences wrought by the ancient scrolls. However, Xia Tian understood that such revelations were not to be shared with anyone. Lord Lin Yu, I am Yigu Rue, but you may simply call me Rue. I am the second daughter of the chieftain of the Iron Crow tribe, and I have been missing for a week. My elder sister, Yigu Rue, must be searching for me everywhere. If you do not mind, you may visit my tribe, and I shall ensure that my father treats the 2 esteemed lords with utmost hospitality. Upon finishing her words, Yigu Rue gazed at Lin Yu with fervent longing. Where do your tribesmen reside now? The Stode's Corner is near the coast of the Trembling Sea. Due to the pit monster, all the free folk have gathered there. The king beyond the walls teaches us to construct vessels, in hopes of escaping this accursed land. That aligns with what we know, then let us set forth. I am eager to meet this king beyond the walls, Lin Yu said thoughtfully. Based on the information Lin Yu received from the commander of the Night's Watch, this king, who governs all tribes, could indeed be a turning point. Lin Yu has not forgotten the vengeance against the White Ghost invasion. He recalled the task entrusted to him by the Night's Watch. If possible, and if Commander Mo Meng still lived, there might still be a chance to claim the reward that had yet to be paid. Chapter 8. The invasion of monsters. The trio journeyed eastward and even encountered a half-orc camp along the way, which merely barred outsiders from entering their territory without resorting to aggression, a curious occurrence indeed. Strange creatures became increasingly abundant, and Rue fervently hoped that the Iron Crow tribe would remain safe and that her sister would be unharmed. As she walked, she prayed, resembling a temple priestess in her devotion. The deity you beseech shall surely hear your prayers, Lin Yu remarked, giving Rue a reassuring pat on the shoulder. Is that true? Lord Lin Yu, I was just praying to you, and it seems to be effective. Cough Rue. Remember that the deities who descend to the mortal realm are not omnipotent. I may offer you my protection, but I cannot guarantee the safety of your tribe from unseen forces. That is of no concern, Lord Lin Yu. Having your protection is the greatest honor of my life. Lin Yu smiled wryly and shook his head. The end of a lie remains a lie, yet explaining it would only complicate matters further. 3 hours later, in the distance, the shadow of a wildling camp became discernible. After a day and night of travel, the 3 finally reached their destination. However, as they approached, a cacophony of battle cries assaulted their ears. A vast horde of green-skinned goblins was attacking the wildling camp, their numbers staggering. Initial estimates suggested at least 2,000 goblin creatures. Our tribe is in peril. I must assist, Rue exclaimed, retrieving her bow and arrows from her back and sprinting towards the wildling camp. Yet, after only 2 steps, Xia Tian seized Rue's animal hide and pulled her back forcefully. Lord Xia Tian, do not restrain me. I must fight for my tribe. Xia Tian did not respond further, merely releasing his grip, allowing Lin Yu to speak, believing perhaps Lin Yu's words might persuade her. Rue, I understand your urgency, but take a closer look at those 2,000 goblins. If you charge forward, you will succumb to the goblins' daggers within mere moments, so remain calm. Upon hearing Lin Yu's words, Rue obediently halted, though her trembling form betrayed her inner turmoil. Look, the gate of the wildling camp has suddenly swung open, Xia Tian whispered urgently. A throng of brawny wildlings surged forth, numbering in the hundreds, with their leader bellowing fervently, "I am the third son of the Tongjia tribe, commonly known as Tongjia Sanshao. Damn those diminutive green fiends, may they all perish." The robust wildling leader brandished two mighty axes, draped in the pelt of a white wolf, adorned with distinctive head ornaments, and his chest boasted a thicket of coarse hair. As the wildlings launched their ferocious charge, they cleaved through the small goblins, often dispatching several with a single swing. Yet, the sheer numbers of the goblins proved overwhelming. For every 2 or 3 goblins slain, 7 or 8 would retaliate, sinking their blades into the wildlings' flesh. The fierce battle raged for nearly half an hour, culminating in the demise of all the wildlings. The initial leader suffered the most, riddled with countless wounds, a grotesque testament to his valiant fight, ultimately falling to the ground amidst a gruesome scene, where a dozen goblins commenced devouring his remains. In the eyes of the goblins, the flesh of formidable creatures was a wellspring of energy. By slaying and consuming them, they believed they could absorb their strength. Despite the wildlings' substantial losses, the goblins themselves had suffered even greater casualties, with their ranks dwindling from over 2,000 to a mere 500 or 600. A chorus of wolf howls erupted as 4 spectral wolves charged onto the battlefield, and from a suddenly risen earthen wall, fireballs and arrows rained down upon the congregated goblins below. The goblins, now aware of the threat, hastened to scale the wall, yet, as they neared the summit, Valyrian steel swords would sever their hands or heads. Meanwhile, the 4 spectral wolves summoned by Lin Yu tore through one goblin after another, each wolf capable of decapitating its prey in a single bite, while the goblins' daggers proved ineffective against such ethereal predators. The 4 spectral wolves represented the limit of Lin Yu's summoning ability. Should he attempt to conjure another, his magical reserves would falter, leaving him powerless. Goblin after goblin continued to swarm, even as the ground beneath the earthen wall became a grotesque staircase formed from the corpses of the fallen. The trio began to show signs of fatigue after merely 10 minutes, yet fortune smiled upon them as the gate of the wildling camp opened once more, allowing a contingent of Iron Crow warriors to join the fray. Though their numbers were few, only 50 or 60, the goblins had gathered around the earthen wall, providing the Iron Crow warriors with the opportunity to launch a deadly ambush. Time became a blur as the earthen wall became stained with a bizarre, pale green ichor, and the ground was littered with heaps of bodies, both goblins and fallen wildlings alike. Exhausted, the trio lay sprawled upon the earthen wall, gasping for breath. The gates of the wildman camp swung wide open, and a dozen elderly wild men emerged, representing the various chiefs of the northern tribes gathered in the snow-laden expanse. Chief Yeda of the Iron Crow tribe immediately recognized his second daughter at first glance. When the 3 were besieged, it was only Chief Yeda who, alongside his kin, bravely confronted the goblins, alleviating the pressure on the trio. Though perplexed by his daughter's companionship with a sorcerer and a swordsman, he sensed their intent to aid the wildman camp, especially as the mightiest warriors of the Tongjia tribe had perished, leaving no one to face the monstrosities head-on. It was these 3 who ultimately salvaged the wildman tribe. With tears glistening in her eyes, Rue descended the earthen wall, stepping upon the fallen goblins as a makeshift staircase, and embraced Chief Yeda, sharing her harrowing tale amidst sobs. Occasionally glancing back at Lin Yu and Xia Tian perched upon the wall. Having regained a modicum of strength, Lin Yu and Xia Tian approached Rue's side, prompting Chief Yeda to clasp Lin Yu's hands tightly, expressing his heartfelt gratitude. "I am eternally thankful to you both for saving my daughter and rescuing the wildman camp. Let us open our doors wide and treat you with the utmost hospitality." Under the luminous moonlight, within the Iron Crow tribe's hide tents, a roasted lamb and several large jars of sheep's milk wine adorned the table, as 2 men and a woman ravenously indulged in the feast, disregarding any semblance of decorum. Surrounding them stood the free folk of the Iron Crow tribe, who, while salivating at the sight, could only watch but not partake, yet felt no resentment. If they could help save the wildman camp, they too would deserve such bounty. For over 10 days, the wildman camp, once home to a population of 100,000, had been intermittently besieged by mysterious and fearsome creatures. Now, the camp was reduced to merely a few thousand souls, a testament to the horrors they faced with each invasion. As even the last remaining giants had fallen just days prior. Had the giants survived, these diminutive goblins would have been as inconsequential as ants, easily subdued by the giants' mere presence. "Where is your king from beyond the frontier? Was it not he who led all of you free folk?" Lin Yu inquired after swallowing a mouthful of lamb leg. "He is dead. Before such monstrous forces, none can assure their survival," Chief Yeda lamented. recounting the onslaught of thousands of pale-skinned diminutive creatures, along with over 100 towering snow beasts, led by a colossal 5-meter snow monster, who besieged the Wildman camp for 3 days and nights. Only after a cataclysmic struggle, marked by a sea of blood and mountains of corpses, did the invasion cease. With a heavy heart, Chief Yeta sighed repeatedly. The Iron Crow tribe had long been renowned for its archers, once boasting a population of at least 1,000. Most had perished in that devastating conflict, and now, including the 16 lost today, only a little over 100 remained, comprising the frail and the ill. The butterfly effect had taken hold. The world was undergoing irrevocable changes, advancing towards an unknown destiny. Game of Thrones is merely a television series, its world rather mundane. However, with the emergence of the scrolls, the magical essence of the world has been elevated, summoning a myriad of monsters into this realm. The path ahead shall no longer be tranquil, it will be fraught with thorns. Lin Yu has learned of the death of the king beyond the wall, and his heart is tumultuous, while unknown creatures may be lurking everywhere across the globe. Lin Yu resolves to enlist the aid of the Iron Crow tribe, with the aim of constructing a vessel to navigate southward from the Trembling Sea. Should fortune favor them, they may reach the northern territories within a fortnight. Having devised a plan, Lin Yu shares his thoughts with Chief Yeta, who immediately expresses hearty agreement. Since the demise of the king beyond the wall, no one has been adept at shipbuilding, leaving behind an incomprehensible parchment of sheepskin. The treatment of a savior is exceptionally favorable. Lin Yu and Xia Tian each enjoy the comfort of a fur tent for rest. As Lin Yu lies upon the large fur bed, he contemplates his next steps, grappling with uncertainty and a touch of trepidation regarding the future. In this perilous world, even with the possession of magic, Lin Yu feels a sense of fear. Visions of monstrous deaths, fallen warriors, and the Night's Watch casualties flash before his eyes. Reminiscent of his swift transformation from an ordinary individual to a novice sorcerer, a whirlwind of change that overwhelms him, leaving him under immense pressure. Suddenly, the entrance flap of the fur tent is drawn open, and a shadow quietly enters the room. So engrossed in his thoughts was Lin Yu that he remained oblivious until the shadow spoke, revealing its identity. "It is I, Master Lin Yu. Why are you still awake at this hour? Is there something you seek?" Rue gently places her delicate finger upon Lin Yu's lips, signaling for silence. Their gazes lock in a moment of profound stillness, though Rue's restless hands betray her unease. The oil lamp within the tent flickers to life, and perhaps due to having bathed, Rue's visage is fully unveiled. Her features are strikingly symmetrical, and her formerly grimy black hair now flows in fiery red locks. As Rue sheds her disguise, her enchanting figure astounds. Beneath the heavy fur cloak, one could scarcely anticipate such beauty, smooth, pristine peaks resembling the stars that illuminate the night. It is as if the crisp melodies of birdsong resonate through the wilderness, heralding the blooming of blood-red plum blossoms. In the depths of winter, these blossoms are the most vibrant, their fragrance piercing the bitter cold, akin to a sword sharpened through toil. Exhaustion weighs heavily upon Lin Yu. He is unsure whether it is the battles of the day or the night that have drained him. As dawn approaches, his eyes barely close before he succumbs to a deep slumber, never having felt such fatigue before. Chapter 9. The Wolf Fortress of the North. At this juncture, King Robb seeks reinforcements and turns to the Stark family of Winterfell, hoping to make his dear friend, Eddard Stark, the hand of the king. The Lord of the North, with numerous vassals under his command, resides in the ancestral fortress of Winterfell, the capital of the North. The family crest depicts a silver-gray dire wolf against a backdrop of a white snowfield, and their motto is "Winter is coming." Should he secure the support of House Stark, the debauched Robert Baratheon could continue his indulgent lifestyle, perpetually burdened by debts he could never hope to repay. Alas, the world had veered far from its original path. Just as Robert reveled in laughter and merriment at a banquet with the Stark family, a guard burst into the hall in a state of panic. Even in the presence of King Robert, the guard disregarded all formalities and hurried directly to Eddard Stark to whisper urgent tidings. As the guard conveyed the grim news in its entirety, the previously joyous countenance of Eddard Stark transformed into one of bitter concern, clearly indicating that this was dire news. What could possibly cause our Northern Wolf Lord to wear such a defeated expression? "Cheer up, I am still here." Robert continued to drink and jest, oblivious to the gravity of the situation. "Your Majesty, you must come to my chambers at once. There is a matter of utmost urgency that you must be made aware of," Eddard Stark declared, turning to leave without waiting for Robert's response. Robert paused, his goblet in hand. The two had always shared a close bond, having once stood together against the Mad King. It was Eddard's assistance that had secured Robert's position. Though Robert was a man of indulgence, he was not a fool. A fool cannot enjoy the pleasures of kingship. Realizing the potential seriousness of the matter, he called upon 2 members of the king's guard to accompany him to Eddard's quarters. What could be so urgent? I suspect Eddard is simply concocting some amusement for you, mocked Queen Cersei from the side. I know Eddard. He would not jest in such a manner, especially not about something so grave, Robert casually replied, choosing not to dwell on the subject. Were it not for the staggering debt of 600,000 golden dragons owed to the Lannister family, Robert would have demonstrated to this woman what true regal authority entailed. If he could stand against the Mad King, surely he should not be cowed by a mere woman. This predicament was of his own making. As Robert departed, a diminutive figure approached Cersei, holding a goblet, and filled her cup with wine. A wise queen should never question her husband, for it undermines the king's dignity, remarked the clever imp, Tyrion Lannister. What is the matter? Are the brothels of Winterfell unable to satiate your desires, or have you exhausted your golden dragons? You hardly seem to enjoy the festivities, do you? Cersei, with a quick motion, tossed a small pouch that struck Tyrion on the head, then signaled for the king's guard to escort her little brother outside for some fresh air. The guests present, sensing the atmosphere, discreetly turned their heads away, pretending not to notice the formidable Lannister, a nobleman known for his eccentricities. A brief moment of blindness could indeed spare one from provoking such a slumbering lion. Is it possible that he is experiencing the tumult of midlife, as his temperament seems increasingly volatile? Regardless, in the frigid north, seeking warmth is the true essence of life. Tyrion, unperturbed by the gazes of others, picked up a coin pouch from the ground and tucked it into his belt. He savored a sip of brandy from his glass before following the king's guard out of the banquet. He was the youngest son of Tywin Lannister, the Duke of Casterly Rock, and a guardian of the West, yet he bore the unfortunate visage of a deformed dwarf. Tyrion had an insatiable passion for literature, a keen mind, and a strategic intellect. But his physical deformity rendered him an object of disdain. His birth had even led to the tragic death of his mother, Joanna Lannister, during childbirth, which further fueled his father's disdain for him. Despite his noble lineage and wealth, his disfigurement brought him countless troubles. Lacking affection from his father and sister, he found solace only in books, wine, and the pursuit of warmth. In Eddard's chamber, he had anticipated the sight of several beautiful women awaiting his presence, expecting a delightful surprise. However, the urgency of the situation was palpable. What is it? He inquired. There is no time for indulgence. The wall has fallen, Eddard declared gravely. The wall has fallen? Has the wildling horde invaded? Robert questioned, bewildered. It is far more dire. Winter is coming. The wall has been besieged by monstrous creatures, and only my brother, Benjen Stark, escaped, bloodied and battered, to Winterfell. Eddard sighed. What did your brother say? What manner of beast? Not the White Walkers, but something equally terrifying, orc-like creatures. These half-beasts possess formidable strength, sharp teeth, and overwhelming numbers. According to Benjen, there are 30,000 of them. And they took the wall in a mere 2 hours, Eddard lamented. Robert, I cannot return to King's Landing. I must remain in the north to protect my people. I am a Stark of Winterfell, the North's guardian, Eddard asserted. I apologize for not being able to assist you further. Even as a king, I shall leave 100 King's Guard to aid you, and I will request reinforcements from King's Landing and the Westerlands, though this may take 2 months. Robert stroked his chin, pondering how to support the North further. That will suffice. The North is not without warriors, even against such strange humanoid creatures. The people of the North will fight to the last, Eddard responded. While I trust in your strength, the North is also my domain. I am the rightful king of the 7 kingdoms, Robert declared with pride. As your devoted friend, I implore you not to become enmeshed in indulgence while unknown creatures invade and political turmoil brews in King's Landing. You must remain vigilant. Ed advised, all right. Do not attempt to chastise your king. First, safeguard your own realm. Once all is resolved, I shall still require your assistance as my hand of the king to manage the affairs above and below. However, Robert remained unconcerned. Loyalty is the courage to speak candidly. I hope you will remember that, my brother. Ed inwardly mused. A week had passed, and Rhaerys languidly rested against Lin Yu's chest. Miraculously, a week after the goblin invasion, no monsters had returned to besiege the Free Folks' camp, and approximately 10 vessels had been constructed. The process of building was arduous. For the free folk who had long resided in the snow, the craft of carpentry proved to be quite a challenge. Fortunately, with a sufficient population base, there were a few skilled individuals among them. I am weary of fish. I no longer wish to eat it. We are about to set forth. Let us slaughter a few livestock, Lin Yu said with a bitter expression. Throughout the week, aside from the roasted lamb on the day of the goblin invasion, breakfast consisted of dried fish, lunch was fish soup, and dinner was grilled fish. Even with Rhaeris attempting various preparations, Lin Yu could not endure the monotony of fish at every meal. Very well, I shall speak with my father, but we have only 5 sheep and 2 lambs remaining. I fear he may refuse. Rhaeris stood from Lin Yu's embrace and declared. Lin Yu whispered a few words into Rhaeris' ear, causing her face to flush with warmth. Then surprise, yet she unconditionally trusted Lin Yu and was willing to do anything for him. Oh, how intimate you two are this early in the morning, my dear sister. When shall you add another member to the Iron Crow tribe? Yigu Rei teased. As Rhaeris' twin sister, despite their similarities, their personalities were starkly different. Rhaeris was introverted and somewhat aloof, while Yigu Rei was outgoing and assertive, creating a beautiful contrast as they walked together, a picturesque sight within the Iron Crow tribe. Sister, do not tease me so. When shall you consider your own desires? Rhaeris retorted. As for me, I only admire formidable warriors, those who surpass me in strength. Only then are they worthy of being my partner, Yigu Rei proclaimed with pride. Then, dear sister, you may well face a life of solitude. Your archery can strike prey from 700 meters away. No one can rival your skill. Perhaps you should intentionally lower your standards, and maybe someone might catch your eye. If he cannot even surpass my archery, he is only worthy of licking my toes, unfit to be my Yigu Rei's man. However, wizards are an exception. Their magic surpasses the power of bows and arrows, making them a special case. Yigu Rei concluded, glancing at Lin Yu. Observing this, Rhaeris immediately clung to Lin Yu protectively, casting a wary glance at her sister Yigu Rei. Lin Yu gently stroked Rhaeris' head and kissed her lips, bestowing her with ample affection to ease her defenses. Ah, how sweet. I shall refrain from interrupting your intimacy, but do consider my words regarding wizards. Rut spoke and turned to leave. 5 minutes later, the French kiss came to an end, and Rue, with her flushed cheeks, nestled into Lin Yu's embrace. Too shy to show her face. As a free citizen, the aspiration to find a powerful partner is a thought shared by every woman in her position. In the days before the free settlement, such a place was a den of wolves. It was not solely the male free citizens who sought mates. Strong women were also afforded respect and status. Would he be fond of his sister? Or perhaps more accurately, would she take a liking to him? Rue bashfully inquired. Indeed, there is no one from Blue Star who could resist the allure of a red-haired beauty, especially one who aligns with his tastes. Moreover, his prowess may very well rival my own. After days of diligent work on shipbuilding, he has undergone a remarkable transformation. Lin Yu spoke slowly. His previously restless hands, ignited by the fervor of the last 5 minutes, grew increasingly bold, both of them panting heavily. The waves crashed upon the shore like relentless fists, eroding even the most resilient rocks, yet the stones persevered until the very last moment, until they were worn down to mere fragments, sinking into the depths of the sea. Water, with its persistent flow, shapes stone, and the magical essence that has been molded is now sprouting tender shoots, with his mental fortitude growing ever stronger. After the task was complete, Lin Yu, in sage mode, began to meditate, a practice he had only recently comprehended. With closed eyes and a serene mind, he initiated a cycle of magical energy within his body, and with each repetition, his power incrementally increased. Chapter 10. A renewed blizzard. The alarm horn suddenly sounded, and a piercing cold wind swept in, transforming the previously sunny weather into a whirlwind of snowflakes and a blizzard. The swirling snow obscured vision, but amidst the storm, an unusual cacophony stirred. Hundreds of thousands of ghastly figures emerged, and the 7-meter-high wooden wall of the free settlement was breached by the undead, who formed a living ladder in mere minutes, leaving everyone in a daze. Chaos erupted within the free settlement, but soon warriors from each tribe organized a defense, fiercely charging towards the undead, shattering their skulls with stone axes. Archers released arrows bound with stone ropes, capable of ensnaring the undead upon a successful hit. The sudden chill jolted Lin Yu from his meditation. He ceased his introspection to absorb the unfolding chaos. The cries of terror and anguish filled the air of the free settlement. Extending his mental power from the confines of the animal skin tent, he probed the surroundings. After covering a distance of 200 meters, he immediately discerned the spectral forms of the undead within his mental reach. Recognizing the familiar resonance of the very undead he had encountered at the cast camp, Rue, resting beside Lin Yu, was abruptly awakened by the tumult outside. Bolting from the tent to witness a seemingly infinite sea of undead, her heart racing with fear as she hastily retreated inside. "We must hurry," she exclaimed. "I understand. Let us find your father first." Before she finished speaking, Lin Yu grasped her hand, and they dashed toward the chieftain's tent of the Iron Crow tribe, arriving just in time to hear a piercing scream. As the beast's skin curtain was drawn back, a ghoul was seen gnawing at the neck of Chief Yade of the Iron Crow tribe, a stone axe embedded in its skull. Clearly, the aged chief lacked the strength to cleave the ghoul's skull. "No, father!" Rue cried out in despair. Swiftly, she drew her wooden bow from her back, releasing an arrow with an immense force that struck the ghoul's head, pinning it to the bare head trophy hanging within the beast's skin tent. Rue cradled Chief Yade, tears streaming down her face, her trembling hands gripping him tightly. Beside her, Lin Yu immediately invoked his healing touch. As the severed flesh on the chief's neck began to cease its bleeding, the wound gradually contracting. Rue, you and your sister are as beautiful as your mother, Yegoros. Chief Yade murmured weakly, caressing Rue's face. Lin Yu, I entrust my daughters to you. You must take good care of them. With those final words, he passed the crowwood necklace from his chest to Lin Yu's hand, entrusting the Iron Crow tribe to him before drawing his last breath. With a fatal injury compounded by the natural decline of age, the elderly Chief Yade embarked on his final journey into the cycle of reincarnation. Father. Rue's tears soaked Lin Yu's beast skin coat as she leaned against him, sobbing uncontrollably. Yet, there was no time for mourning. The pair exited the chief's tent to find the entirety of the Iron Crow tribe gathered outside, having rushed to the scene at the sound of the screams, but alas, they had arrived too late to prevent the ghoul's attack. Upon seeing the crowwood carving on Lin Yu's chest, the tribe instantly recognized him as the new leader. From the crowd emerged Yegoru, Rue's sister, who, with tears in her eyes, picked up a torch and ignited the beast's skin tent. The Iron Crow tribe believed that death was not the final destination, and thus, they set ablaze the body, allowing the soul to journey with the crow into reincarnation. Lin Yu led everyone to the shipbuilding house by the coast. Originally, 20 vessels were expected to be completed, yet only 18 were ready. Given the urgent circumstances, there was no time for contemplation. All boarded the ships, planning to arrange other matters once they were at sea. Early that morning, amidst the hustle of ship construction, Xia Tian had been waiting for Lin Yu, and, upon seeing that the Iron Crow tribe had mostly assembled, promptly directed everyone to hoist the anchors and set sail. The ships swayed as they slowly departed from the shore. The ghoul invasion had come to an end, apart from the Iron Crow tribe. There were no survivors among the thousands of free folk encampments. Hundreds of thousands of ghouls gazed at the departing vessels, yet dared not venture into the sea. In the distance, atop a hill, Lin Yu beheld the Night King, mounted on a steed of the undead. It was their first encounter, and they exchanged mutual glances. A fireball collided with an ice spear in midair, the explosion shattering the ice into fragments, a sight that left the Night King astonished. The ships had already drifted several hundred meters from the shore, and neither party continued their magical skirmish. Lin Yu turned away from the Night King, for he understood that during their next encounter, he would not flee. He was determined to use the Night King's skull as a chamber pot. The vessel set sail, trembling as it navigated towards the Seal Bay in the northern realm, with dozens of small to medium-sized ships drifting upon the vast ocean. Animal pelts served as sails, while massive stones were bound together to form anchors. The waves occasionally crashed against the vessels, causing them to sway precariously, instilling fear in the hearts of all aboard. Would the ship truly not capsize? Lin Yu cast a worried glance at the boundless sea, his heart questioning the safety of their journey. He secured a rope around his waist, as did everyone else on the ship, for the vessel had not been constructed to the highest standards. It rocked like a carnival ride, and without the tether, a strong wave could easily send someone flying overboard. A dozen ships lacked rudders, relying primarily on the thrust of animal skin sails and oars. Lin Yu had initially anticipated reaching the northern realm within a month, however, at the current pace. Unless they enjoyed favorable winds for 2 consecutive weeks, that goal seemed increasingly unattainable. He instructed Rue to stand at the bow of the ship, both of them facing the ocean breeze. This scene resembled that of the Titanic, but just as a wave surged toward them, they nearly lost their footing. Their predicament appeared rather comical as the sun began to set, casting a veil over the sky that gradually darkened. Reluctantly, they returned to the cabin. 7 days later, Rue emerged from the cabin, offering a jug of goat's milk and a piece of jerky. "We are in trouble," she said anxiously. "We have plenty of jerky, but all our goat's milk has begun to spoil. How could this happen? How careless of me to forget the temperature fluctuations. What is the status of our freshwater reserves?" Lin Yu inquired. "The situation is even worse," Rue replied. "The swaying of the ship has drenched the water barrels with seawater, and all the freshwater has turned to brine. It's the same on every ship." The jerky had also begun to taste salty, and everyone was feeling lethargic. Several had vomited to the point of exhaustion and had not eaten for a day. As soon as Rue finished speaking, she rushed to the side of the ship to be sick. Having lived nearly her entire life in the snow, she was utterly unprepared for the ordeal of sailing, particularly on such a rocking vessel. For a novice sailor, it was a hellish introduction to the sea. The low hull of the ship heightened the humidity in the cabin, reminiscent of spending an entire day by the seaside, where one would find salt crystals accumulating on the skin even without entering the water. We must find a small island to replenish our freshwater and food supplies and notify everyone on the other ships, Lin Yu declared. There were a total of 18 vessels and over 100 people. However, as all the ships drew closer together, Lin Yu leapt onto another ship to assess the situation, immediately realizing that he had been overly complacent. Except for the summer ship, nearly all the others were in dire straits. No vessel remained intact. Symptoms of severe vomiting and diarrhea were rampant, and some exhibited signs of mild septicemia and dehydration, having fainted for hours without regaining consciousness. Upon boarding the summer vessel, Lin Yu noticed that although the crew appeared pale, Summer's condition was relatively the best among them. Even Lin Yu has been enduring a rather challenging time lately. Were it not for the meditative techniques that help to relax the body, he would find it exceedingly difficult to find solace in sleep. Xia Tian took a leather water pouch from Lin Yu and gulped down a generous amount of fresh water, catching his breath before he began to speak. The first 3 days had been manageable, but now it seemed as though he could see someone in the far-off ocean waving at him. Xia Tian sighed deeply and slowly remarked, "We are all in a similar predicament. And what about Rue Te? I specifically arranged for you to be on a boat alone with her," Lin Yu inquired. Recalling how they had the energy to chat and spar during the first 3 days, discussing the Free Folk and the Iron Crow tribe, only to find themselves confined to the cabin now, with the animal hide blanket untouched. Rue Te had become so weak that she needed him to feed her. She lacked the strength even to walk. "Are you feeding her mouth to mouth?" Lin Yu teased. "Huh. If you're not afraid of her suddenly regurgitating on you, you might as well give it a try. TSK, I was hoping to play matchmaker for you too, but it appears that the situation is far from ideal. You scoundrel. To think of matchmaking others in such an environment. I, on the other hand, have a preference for girls with white hair," Xia Tian exclaimed. "White hair? So, that is your type. Don't worry. As your good brother, I shall help you scout for one," Lin Yu said, patting Xia Tian on the shoulder. "Please don't introduce anyone. All I can think about now is getting a good night's sleep on solid ground. The swaying of the ship only allows me to sleep for 2 or 3 hours before I awaken suddenly, and it's utterly unbearable. I came precisely to discuss this matter. We must make landfall." After Lin Yu shared the entire situation with Xia Tian, both felt a sense of shame. Having assumed that 9 years of compulsory education would enable them to traverse this foreign world with ease, reality dealt them a harsh blow. The gap between theory and practice was vast. They had underestimated the challenges ahead, setting sail with insufficient preparation just days after constructing their vessel. 8 days passed, and after half a month of sailing, they finally spotted an island. After several hours, everyone finally disembarked. How many of us are still alive, and what is the condition? 20 individuals were suffering from varying degrees of dehydration. 16 were severely afflicted with septicemia, for had been in a coma for 12 hours, and the rest had perished. Xia Tian's voice was hoarse as he lamented, "Only 40 of us remain alive. I swear I shall never again set foot on a ship in the Middle Ages. Those of us still able to breathe must seek out sources of fresh water and wild fruits. Once we regain our strength, we will search the shores for seafood." After saying this, Lin Yu collapsed onto the beach, slipping into unconsciousness. Throughout these nightmarish 8 days, their food had grown increasingly salty, and their supply of fresh water had long been exhausted. Lin Yu survived by employing a distillation method, evaporating seawater to obtain fresh water, which he then used to soak the dried meat before consuming it. Moreover, the number of those afflicted by septicemia had steadily increased. Lin Yu utilized his healing magic to aid those suffering, but even then, he could only manage to sustain 30 individuals, as the magic drained both his physical energy and mental fortitude. Upon succumbing to unconsciousness, the elders of the Iron Crow tribe first faltered, followed by the women and children. Each time they awakened, the elders tacitly allowed the children to be healed first, followed by the women, while the men and elders were left until the end. Soon, one by one, the elders departed this world. This scene was undeniably brutal, yet it epitomized humanity's will to survive and the legacy of Sparks. When Lin Yu's magical energy was depleted, he fell into a coma. Upon awakening, he continued to expend his magic. With each awakening, his magical potency increased slightly, yet the duration of his unconsciousness grew longer. Although Lin Yu was unaware during these episodes, his mind persisted in cultivating new spells and meditating. This time, however, the expenditure of magic was more profound than ever before, for upon perceiving the island, Lin Yu believed that with just one last effort, he could liberate himself, allowing the Iron Crow tribe to rejuvenate. This bout of unconsciousness stretched over 3 days and nights. When Lin Yu finally awoke, everyone was gathered in a cave. It was night, and all were resting. Beside him lay Rue, whose sleeping visage was utterly charming. Each gentle breath caused her cherubic face to puff adorably. And in her slumber, she occasionally murmured Lin Yu's name. As if sensing the chill, she embraced him tightly, resting against him to continue her peaceful dreams. Chapter 11. The assault. The island was vast, shrouded in dense jungle. Nestled within a hillside cave, the group had settled in. After several days of magical healing, all traces of their ailments had been thoroughly eradicated. However, their food supplies had been depleted, and the coconuts from the nearby trees had been entirely harvested. They were in urgent need of sustenance and fresh water. As Lin Yu and his companions ventured deeper into the island's verdant thicket, they hoped to discover an adequate water source. Strangely, after walking for several minutes, the jungle was eerily silent. Despite the ominous signs emanating from the island's wilderness, the group pressed on, driven by the necessity of survival. Suddenly, a grand yet decaying manor emerged from the depths of the jungle, an astonishing sight amidst the foliage. Just as they contemplated approaching and entering the estate, 10 hellhounds, their bodies grotesquely rotting and adorned with spiked collars, emerged from the nearby underbrush. Their blood-red eyes glinted with ferocious intent. Instantly, the hellhounds lunged at the group, plunging them into chaos. Several robust men from the Iron Crow tribe quickly drew their stone axes to retaliate. However, each swing of the axe merely inflicted superficial wounds, and after a few strikes, the weapons were rendered useless. Panic ensued among the tribe as cries erupted. The axes are ineffective. Retreat. My axe is broken. A few warriors were overwhelmed, their flesh torn asunder by the hellhounds' razor-sharp teeth, eliciting heart-wrenching screams from the fallen. The hellhounds, barely fazed by the strikes, merely shook their putrid bodies, leaving only faint white marks where they had been struck. The situation has turned dire, with the Iron Crow tribe descending into a horrific massacre. Upon realizing the gravity of the circumstances, Lin Yu swiftly summoned 4 spectral wolves to combat the hellhounds, accompanied by a few fireballs. One hellhound was instantaneously reduced to a cloud of bone dust by the impact of 2 fireballs. Xia Tian also brandished the Valyrian steel sword, Longclaw. The Valyrian steel possesses a unique property, effortlessly slicing through the hellhound's hide, which could not be marred even by a stone axe, as smoothly as butter melting. Although it seemed prolonged, the battle concluded in a mere 5 minutes. As the last hellhound disintegrated into bone dust, the conflict came to an end. The Iron Crow tribe suffered the loss of 7 warriors, with 3 gravely injured, plunging the tribe into a state of demographic decay, comprising 33 members, 25 women, 5 children, and 3 severely wounded men. Just as Lin Yu intended to heal the 3 injured warriors, the almost lifeless figures suddenly exhibited bloodshot eyes, with veins protruding grotesquely beneath their skin, resembling serpents. The 3 warriors gasped for breath while emitting agonizing wails. After enduring several seconds of torment, their bodies sprouted a profusion of gray fur, their physiques becoming significantly augmented, accompanied by the chilling sound of cracking bones. As claws extended from their fingertips and fangs gradually emerged. Werewolves. This was the transformation process into werewolves. The hellhounds possessed the ability to infect with lycanthropy. Xia Tian gasped in shock and immediately plunged the Valyrian steel sword into the heart of one of the warriors. The pierced werewolf let out a final, anguished howl before succumbing to death. However, the other 2 werewolves successfully completed their transformation, plunging everyone back into battle against the newly unleashed ferocity. Just as one wave of conflict subsided, another arose. Yet this time, everyone was afforded a brief moment to react. The 2 werewolves charged towards the nearest Lin Yu, who had already summoned the spectral wolves once more. With a swift swipe, one werewolf dissipated a spectral wolf into a wisp of blue smoke, losing one within mere seconds, causing Lin Yu, who was poised to cast a fireball, to tremble and interrupt the incantation. After dispatching the spectral wolf, the other werewolf covered the distance in mere strides, moving with the swiftness of a jungle predator, leaping towards Lin Yu with its gaping maw ready to strike. Faced with the rapidly approaching werewolf, Lin Yu's fear manifested as trembling hands. It was an inevitable reaction when confronted by a 2-meter-tall, vicious werewolf charging forth at such proximity. There was no time left to cast the fireball. As Lin Yu gazed at the leaping werewolf, he could vividly discern the creature's sharp fangs and the foul stench it exuded. In that instant, Xia Tian's Valyrian steel sword pierced through the werewolf's back, protruding from its chest, the blade nearly grazing Lin Yu. Fortunately, just as the words escaped, the last werewolf tore through Xia Tian's arm with a single swipe, sending him hurtling away with immense force. He crashed into a tree stump several meters away, leaving 3 deep gashes on his arm. A tongue of fire surged towards the werewolf's face, the searing flames instantly scorching its eyes, plunging the creature into a frenzied madness as it clawed at everything around it, even ripping apart a tree trunk of a meter's girth into a shower of wood shavings. The flames continued to blaze, fueled by the werewolf's mane, transforming it into a fiery specter, howling in agony while thrashing about. The acrid scent of charred flesh soon filled the air, and the werewolf succumbed, collapsing to the ground as a charred corpse. Chapter 12. The mysterious woman with the werewolf vanquished. All members of the Iron Crow tribe fled in haste. In this dire situation, Rue commanded everyone to retreat, while Lin Yu and Xia Tian held the rear, ensuring the tribe's safe return to the coastal cave. Suddenly, the grand gates creaked open, and a woman clad in a blood-red garment emerged. Her hood obscured her features, rendering her visage indistinguishable. "Oh, I sincerely apologize for my guard's unfortunate mishap. I hope none of you were harmed," she exclaimed, performing a courtly gesture that exuded an air of refinement. However, Lin Yu, having just vanquished the werewolf, paid her no mind, prioritizing instead the need to assist Xia Tian, who had been thrown aside by the beast. As Lin Yu helped Xia Tian to his feet, the healing touch immediately began to staunch the bleeding. The mysterious woman approached slowly, and upon exchanging a glance with Lin Yu, both understood the need for vigilance. She was adorned in a blood-red vampiric attire, and with the sun shining brightly. Her hooded figure bore the distinctive marks of the ancient vampires described in scrolls of lore. "I am Camilla Xia. I truly apologize for the inconvenience caused. Why not come to my estate for healing as a form of restitution? I am a reclusive sorceress with exquisite alchemical healing potions that can assist you," she offered, casting a flirtatious glance at Xia Tian, her eyes lingering on his still bleeding arm. "It is we who intruded first. There is no need for you to feel remorse." "Lady Camilla Xia," Lin Yu interjected. "I, too, am a sorcerer, and I would relish the opportunity to exchange insights on our magical practices. That hellhound, for instance, must have been summoned through some medium, correct?" "Indeed, I can teach you," Camilla replied with an alluring smile. "I possess a tome for summoning hellhounds, which I could lend you. If you manage to master it, consider it my recompense," she added, her charm undeniable. Lin Yu thought to himself, this vampiric woman is rather intriguing. Meanwhile, Xia Tian, uninjured, gently tapped Lin Yu with his unscathed arm, still clutching the Valyrian steel sword. As they stood back to back against Camilla Xia, this scene, perfectly concealed from Camilla Xia, revealed the unspoken connection between the two men. Longtime comrades who instantly understood each other's intentions through their exchanged glances. As Camilla Xia led the way, the trio walked along the gravel path of the estate. Lin Yu suddenly approached Camilla Xia, initiating conversation. "Xia, why do you wear your hood so tightly? And your armor is exquisite, resembling a garment crafted specifically for nobility," he inquired. "This is the ceremonial armor of my family, fashioned from the finest fabric and imbued with enchantments that accelerate the recovery of both magical energy and physical strength." Along with providing resistance to magic, Camilla Xia replied, generously divulging information without reservation. Her words heightened the vigilance of the two men. Revealing such significant details to strangers suggested a lack of intention to leave any witnesses, as if she viewed them merely as sustenance. The grand estate loomed overhead, casting a shadow over the three, prompting Camilla Xia to remove her hood. Ignoring her unsettling crimson eyes, she appeared as a celestial beauty, tall, with flowing golden hair and a stunning visage that could inspire awe. Just as she prepared to open the door, Lin Yu lavished praise upon her appearance, eliciting a hearty laugh from Camilla Xia. As her laughter grew, a faint blue light emanated from her eyes, directed towards Lin Yu. This was a spell of vampiric allure. Suddenly, a swift strike severed Camilla Xia's head from her body, a treacherous maneuver executed by Xia Tian, who had remained silent throughout their journey, patiently waiting for the opportune moment. The sound of the door unlocking masked the fatal strike, as Camilla Xia, oblivious to the impending danger, continued to cast her charm. Xia Tian's Valyrian steel sword had been poised for action. Camilla Xia, caught off guard, believed everything was proceeding according to her plan. Lin Yu, having succumbed to the vampiric enchantment, quickly regained his senses. Rather than blood spilling forth, her lifeless form ignited in white flames, disintegrating into a fine dust, leaving behind only her attire. Lin Yu, seizing the moment, collected the armor. What do you intend to do with that vampire armor? Are you claiming it while it's still warm? Xia Tian teased. Get lost. This is magical equipment, meant for Rue. I just helped everyone from the Iron Crow tribe escape back to their cave. I intend to bring it to her. Although Rue lacked magical ability, armor that enhanced recovery and provided magical resistance was indeed valuable. Furthermore, the armor remained intact, and Lin Yu expressed gratitude for the decapitation rather than a heart stab, which would have required repairs. No need for thanks. It was a trivial matter. Let's focus on treating the scratches on my arm. Otherwise, I might transform into a werewolf and devour you. Xia Tian jested, imitating a wolf's howl. The two entered the estate quietly, scanning the room for any signs of life. After a thorough search lasting several minutes, Lin Yu opened a wardrobe and, amidst a pile of flamboyant undergarments, discovered a pitch-black tome inscribed with bizarre incantations. Ah, how extraordinary. To think it was hidden here, I have finally found it. Lin Yu disregarded the garments exuding exotic fragrances, and, upon touching the obsidian book, the incantations immediately flooded his mind. The Hellhound, corroded by the very essence of hell, is a flesh-eating beast, ferocious and indiscriminate. A creature ubiquitous in the infernal realms and a favored pet of the hellish lords. To summon this creature, one requires a small soul stone or a human heart, fire-charred wood, rootless water, and an intact canine carcass, arranged in a summoning circle. By means of these mediators, the hellish entity may be called forth to dwell permanently in this realm, albeit necessitating a considerable intake of raw flesh. All the incantations became clear, and Lin Yu discerned the materials indicated, ultimately finding only a peculiar summoning magic circle on the last page of the tome. He mused that this summoned creature seemed far less appealing than his spectral wolf, requiring an abundance of meat, which was simply beyond his means. Sighing, Lin Yu lamented. After mastering the magic, the two continued their search and stumbled upon another spellbook, alongside a few gold bars, some jewels, and numerous vials of blood. Through similar means, Lin Yu joyfully discovered that this tome contained spells for summoning fire elementals. The required materials included fire salt, vampire powder, and dragon crystal. This hellfire elemental creature possessed certain fire-related magical abilities and an elemental body, being vulnerable to water and ice magic. After summoning, it necessitated a month to replenish its magical core. Although it would gradually restore its power, if not replenished, the summoned creature would be incapable of casting spells. How delightful! As long as he could procure fire salt and dragon crystal, a formidable permanent familiar would be his. The two continued their exploration and eventually uncovered a dungeon filled with human skeletons. The tattered and blood-stained garments indicated they belonged to pirates or similar folk. Aside from the opulent furnishings, only mundane items remained, including a wine cellar. The duo decided to retreat, planning to bring the Iron Crow tribe to this estate. Chapter 13. The legacy of magic. Time passed, and half a month went by. They had thoroughly explored the island, leaving no stone unturned. And aside from the absence of living creatures, everything appeared normal. Due to the lack of wildlife, the group resorted to fishing for sustenance, initially catching only small fish, shrimp, and crabs. However, as their skills improved, many could dive and catch larger fish. Life had unexpectedly settled, and the estate was spacious enough that the Iron Crow tribe no longer desired to embark on voyages to distant lands. With the ocean far removed from the frigid climate of the north, the sun shone intermittently, bringing warmth to all. The inhabitants discovered several rain-fed pools on the island. Well-fed and warmly clothed, the Iron Crow tribe had little to wish for, save for the fact that all the men had perished, leaving a majority of middle-aged women. With only the sisters Rue and Rue Te, along with two other young maidens, remaining. The two young maidens, named Yexu and Yedbing, belong to the esteemed bloodline of the Iron Crow tribe and are cousins of Ruiri. They have chosen to serve Lin Yu as his attendants, bringing him tea and water in exchange for lessons in magic. Lin Yu, generous in spirit, is willing to impart his knowledge. Despite his lack of understanding of the powers and intricacies of the magical world, Lin Yu possesses an ancient tome of spells derived from his memories, which enables him to master the fundamentals of magic. In truth, every individual in this realm harbors some degree of magical energy within them. Not everyone is devoid of it. Upon discovering this, Lin Yu was struck with an ambitious idea to establish his own magical army, one capable of overlooking and reshaping the world, transcending its boundaries. The study of magic holds the potential for infinite transformation, unbound by singular forms. Mastery of the fireball spell, for instance, could lead to the development of the flame tongue spell, both of which are merely elementary magics. The pathways of low-tier magic are straightforward. By adhering to the memorized routes of magical energy and skillfully guiding it along those paths, one can conjure spells. After 3 days of attempting to sense their magical energy, Yedbing and Yegsu, the two maidens, were still unable to perceive it, as their magical reserves were exceedingly scant. Lin Yu himself had to probe with great care, using his mental acuity to detect the faintest fluctuations of magic within them, to cultivate their magical abilities. Lin Yu's meditation techniques proved invaluable. After 5 consecutive days of meditative practice, spanning several hours each day, the two maidens successfully began to sense their magical energy. As time swiftly passed, a month had elapsed on the island. Whenever Lin Yu passed by the estate, he could feel the intense scrutiny of the matriarchs of the Iron Crow tribe upon him. Summer's experiences mirrored this, as one evening, a matriarch knocked on her door under the pretense of insomnia and fear of the dark. In the end, Summer relinquished an oil lamp from her room to appease the eager matriarch, and from that day forth, she ensured to prepare 5 or 6 oil lamps at her door each night to sleep soundly. As dawn broke, Summer began her sword practice within the estate. With her physical abilities significantly enhanced, she wielded the heavy Valyrian steel sword with remarkable finesse. Although her movements were not aesthetically pleasing, they were undeniably practical. Recalling the actions from games in Blue Star, Summer diligently practiced without interruption. Today, she finally unlocked the first orb within her mental star map, which shimmered with 2 characters, Vibrating Blade. This term refers to the technique of dislodging an opponent's weapon through a well-timed block. In combat, the act of deflecting an adversary's weapon and sending them reeling is known as the Vibrating Blade technique. It symbolizes a defensive maneuver that utilizes the opponent's force against them, efficiently redirecting their energy and potentially disarming them. Aside from instructing Yedbing and Yegsu, as well as the sisters Rue and Rue, in Magic Daily, Lin Yu devoted his time to perusing the literature available in the estate study. In the study of a vampire recluse, it was rather astonishing for Lin Yu to discover that the majority of the literature documented the history of vampires. This revelation intrigued him greatly. On the continent of Westeros, a formidable vampire lord once aspired to dominate humanity. However, during that era, dragons still roamed the land. The most powerful dragon rider, an ancestor of the Valyrian family, commanded the fearsome dragon known as the Black Death, which unleashed its fiery breath to annihilate hundreds of ancient vampires. Rumor had it that those vampires were unable to escape using magic. In reality, many had managed to flee. Yet, the vampire lord's attempt to counter the dragon's flames with sorcery ultimately resulted in his obliteration. Following that conflict, all vampires fell into slumber, fearful of the Valyrian dragons that could effortlessly sense the presence of creatures on the ground from a height of 1,000 meters. The surviving vampires were compelled to excavate hundreds of meters into the earth, constructing their resting places underground, awaiting the demise of the dragons before they could revive and reclaim Westeros. This was a secret tome, and Camilla was among the survivors of that war. Rather than retreating underground, she opted to escape overseas and establish her own estate. Approximately 2 centuries had elapsed since that war, and after 200 years without sustenance, Camilla had just awakened. Coincidentally, a delivery arrived at her door. Overwhelmed by weakness and greed, she hastily lost her life. This was dire news. The awakening of a vampire who had slumbered for 2 centuries signaled the resurgence of all ancient vampires in Westeros. Lin Yu contemplated. Seated in the study, Lin Yu felt a tinge of fatigue when the 2 maids, Yetta and Xue, knocked and entered. "My lord, we have completely mastered the fireball technique. Although it is only the size of a palm, its flames possess remarkable longevity and a sustained burning quality," Yetta Xue exclaimed joyfully. Her exuberance was evident as she bounced with youthful vitality. A charming 15-year-old girl whose innocence and sweetness often led Lin Yu to discreetly provide her with extra lessons in practicing magic. "My fireball technique, alongside that of my cousin Rue, may lack this characteristic, but we can conjure fireballs with both hands simultaneously," Yetta Bing interjected, her tone somewhat frigid. This was understandable, as Yetta Bing's father had been one of the 3 who were infected and transformed into werewolves, and her mother had perished at sea from septicemia. For the sake of her sister, Yetta Xue, Yetta Bing found the motivation to persevere and had initially sought to learn magic to protect her sibling, appealing to Lin Yu for guidance. After listening to their reports, Lin Yu felt a stir of emotions within him. His preliminary experiments had proven successful, indicating that magic could indeed be imparted to others, and that individual magical prowess possessed unique attributes. Very well, you have acquired some means of self-defense. I can leave with peace of mind, Lin Yu reassured them. My lord, you intend to depart? Is it because of something that my sister and I have done wrong? Or do you dislike it here? Can my sister and I accompany you? Yeta Bing, filled with urgency, inquired anxiously, fearing that if Lin Yu were to depart, she would miss the opportunity to learn new spells. She was also apprehensive about the lurking dangers in the world, feeling inadequate in her ability to protect her younger sister. It is not that you have not done well, but my aspirations reach for the stars and the sea. I shall not remain stagnant, Lin Yu proclaimed, his gaze fixed upon the fervent Yeta Bing, who he knew had endured a harrowing past and harbored deep-seated obsessions. In the end, Lin Yu bestowed upon them a freshly pinned tome of the ghost wolf summoning technique, advising that once they mastered the art to summon for ghost wolves, they should seek him out in Westeros. Yeta Xia solemnly accepted the summoning manual and expressed her gratitude before the two sisters departed the study, making their way to the corridor to return to their respective chambers. Sister, the stars and the sea. Are we not already on an island in the sea? Why do adults still seek the stars and the sea? Yeta Xia pondered aloud. Dear sister, what the adults refer to is the realm of the unknown, a path we must pursue. Starting tomorrow, we shall dedicate ourselves even more diligently to our magical studies, even meditating through the night. Yeta Bing contemplated before responding. But sister, the adults have instructed us to teach magic to everyone in the Iron Crow tribe. I fear there may be little time left for our own practice. That is not a difficult matter. After teaching the first individual, we can then allow her to instruct the next. Thus, we will have time for ourselves, she reassured. News of Lin Yu and the others' impending departure spread throughout the Iron Crow tribe, leaving everyone with a sense of reluctance and fear of losing their protective barrier. Yet, upon Lin Yu's announcement that Yeta Bing and Yeta Xia would be teaching magic to all, smiles broke out among the tribe, filled with anticipation for the knowledge they would gain. Finally, after bidding farewell to all the members of the Iron Crow tribe by the coast, Lin Yu, along with Xia Tian and Rue, embarked on a new journey, setting sail towards the north.